What's up, everybody? We are live with Sal from House of Gaia. Appreciate you being on for this one, man. I'm really freaking excited, dude. So thanks for kind of making yourself available to us, and yeah, let's kind of dive in here.
Yeah, sure, man.
Yeah, it looks like we've got 10 people in the comments. Appreciate everybody for being here. Seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sal, you want to kind of fill us in, give us a little background on kind of House of Gaia, what got you started, and kind of how we got where we're at, man.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been into reptiles for quite some time.
Yeah.
I had started off like most people. I started off with the bearded dragon back when I was in high school. I think probably grade 10 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think after that it just kind of grew stronger for me. I became more curious and wanted to kind of branch out. And I've always loved snakes, but I'm Italian, so like, most of my family's like petrified of snakes.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I was able to kind of persuade my mom into getting a smaller snake, and I started off with African house snake, which is a relatively small species. I can't remember the scientific name for it, but
That's all right. It's not that kind of podcast.
yeah. So yeah, I started off there, and then kind of gradually started moving towards ball pythons, just because I heard they were a good first time snake, or first time however you say it. But
Yeah.
I got into ball pythons, and then
This is cracking me up. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I looked at my camera and I just see this face like at the glass, like, hey, bro, you trying to feed me or?
What's going on
Sorry.
back there? So yeah, I ended up getting a ball python, and it kind of started there for me.
What year? Like, how many years ago do you think that was? You got your first ball python?
I think that was probably maybe back in 2005 or 2000,
Okay.
maybe even a little bit earlier, actually.
Yeah. So you've been into it for a minute.
Yeah, definitely. And then I kind of progressed, and as I got more into it, I kind of went a little bit bigger, and I started getting into boas actually a little bit more so. Didn't really know too much about them. It was more so at that time it was the size that kind of impressed me.
Yeah.
And just how inquisitive they were. Every time I pulled one at a pet store, I just always loved their movements. I loved how kind of smart they were with their
Yeah.
movements.
Sure.
So,
Like they're thinking. Yeah.
yeah, it really attracted me. I was like, man, these things are just like insane, like absolutely incredible. So ended up getting a pair of those, and I had them in. I've mentioned this story before, but for anyone who hasn't heard it, basically I kept them in an enclosure, quite a large enclosure. It was an 8-foot tank.
Oh, wow.
8 foot by 3 foot by 2 feet. So it was a big tank, but they were housed together. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't, I was just starting out, didn't really know better.
No, dude, and the reality is, I mean, there's still people that keep stuff like that, and I'm not ever going to be one to judge one way or the other on how people keep stuff. I think as long as the animals are healthy and eating and the whole nine, like,
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a
And
safe
they
way to
were-
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were, they I tried to set it up in a manner. They each had heat spots on opposite ends.
Yeah.
And it's a big pool in the middle. And actually, fortunately enough for me, they ended up breeding 3 times, and I had 3 litters with them. So
That's
and
awesome,
that was
man.
all in that enclosure. And I know boas can be quite difficult and finicky to breed. So
That's what I was just gonna say. I mean, that just goes to tell you. I mean, obviously they were doing just fine, because anybody that's ever tried to breed boas will tell you. Like, I know Barchek famously, he says it all the time that
yeah.
he's like, I can't breed these things for crap. Like,
Yeah,
like,
so I mean,
so
there might be something to it. And like I always fed separate, and I tried my best, but
and that's why I say there's I think there's a right way to do it, man. I mean, Kennan's got some carpets that he keeps out in an outdoor enclosure, and they cohabit. It's a male and a female, and I know he did have a video where he did have an issue during feeding, where one of them got a hold of the other one. So it can happen, but I think there's a safe way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, right? I mean, we, especially some of the bigger guys, they have all this knowledge from experience, and until we experience these things, we have no idea how they react or which different species reacts a certain way. And for them it worked, so I'm happy it worked for them. All the babies were healthy and everything like that. Like, we didn't have any issues with anything. So
So that was actually the first species you bred was boas.
yes, yeah,
That's
which is
freaking
insane.
cool, man.
Yeah. It was incredible, and that's what got me hooked. That's kind of where that story was going. After I had my first litter of boas, it was incredible. Just seeing those things being fired up the second they were ready, like the second we removed them from the tank into their own enclosures, they were ready for food, and that just that moment was just amazing to me. Like to think that this thing just came out and it's already like fired up, ready to eat, ready to explore, like just amazing. So
Yeah, that's freaking cool, man.
and that's what got me into
awesome.
ball pythons. I just started looking up different snakes and went back to ball pythons. I started seeing all the new mutations at the time, and I was like, whoa, bumblebee, holy crap, man,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think even now new keepers come in and they see stuff like a bumblebee and they're like,
yeah,
you know, because they, and like that, and that's the thing that I think I love about it, man, is that like, yeah, as deep as we've gone into it now, you know, I mean, we're talking about triple and quadrucessive projects and stuff that's, you know, going to take like 50 years to ever possibly see anything visual.
yeah,
But there's still like, there's so much freaking cool stuff, even
Yeah.
just at the lower levels of this hobby that we're all into, man. So
Seriously,
I think that's
like,
cool.
it's so true. Yeah, even like the beginner $400, $500 snakes now are just incredible.
There's some crazy stuff you can get for $500.
Yeah, and that's easy pet level. I mean, people spend that on pets, you know, pretty easily.
Sure.
You know, it's not hard to save up $500 or whatever.
No, and I think like Billy's talked about it before. You know, like kind of comparing it to like the dog world. You know, like the
Yeah.
amount of money that some people will spend on a dog just to be their pet. You know that you know there's like we used to have English bulldogs. And you know, I mean, that's not a dog that you come by cheap. You know, I think
No,
you know,
exactly.
like you're gonna spend, you know, probably minimum like $2,000
Yeah,
to get a decent bloodline English bulldog, and that's just for something that's a pet that you're gonna turn around and get you know, spayed or neutered, and then you're not buying for breeding purposes. You know, so
exactly. Man.
so yeah, I think that as the popularity of you know the snakes grow, I think, you know, yeah, it's gonna be really neat to kind of see where the market goes.
Absolutely, absolutely, man.
So, kind of give me an idea of what your focus is as far as your ball python collection. How many snakes do you have right now?
I think I have maybe about 35 or so, somewhere in that range. And yeah, like I mean, as far as direction goes, I definitely want to work with Pied. Pied's kind of like my thing. But I still really want to stack some codoms and do some codom work as well. And then eventually work it into my Pied projects.
Sure.
But you know, as things progress, like I try to keep my plan straight, but then I keep seeing different things popping out, man, and it's so hard to keep that plan going.
It's difficult.
Oh man,
Yeah.
there's just so many things that come out that I'm like, holy crap! Now I kind of want to go this way with that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's always evolving, but Pied primarily. You know, I'm really liking Desert Ghost lately. You know, most people are now.
Everybody, yeah.
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 Kind of hard to, but yeah, you know, Pied is definitely it. That's kind of the attention space. So I still want to go that route.
I'm kicking myself for not getting in Desert Ghost, man. I literally when I first got in, I remember I was having a conversation. I can't remember who it was with, but I was like, I think it was my girlfriend at the time. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, I keep hearing about Desert Ghost, like on all these podcasts, and, you know, it was just little mentions. Like nobody was talking about it in great detail. Just like, yeah, Desert Ghost, and they were like, I want to say they were significantly less expensive than what they are now.
Yep.
There were not a lot of people that were pushing that project as like a, you know, like a real direction. It was just kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah.
And man, you know, if I'd have bought some hats, even just, you know, when I first got started, like if I would have gone that direction instead of Ultramel, man.
Dude, I hear you, man. I feel the same.
Not that I'm complaining, but it's just, you know,
Yeah,
it's like the stock market. You're like, oh, I really missed out on that. You know, I missed the ride, but
true, man, it's so true. And you're right, like absolutely. Like I mean, it's not like it went overnight, but like it's almost as if Desert Ghost the price kind of came overnight. It's like people just knew, and then they're like, oh shit, man, this is gonna be huge. Like it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of because I don't think I can in my head pinpoint the exact because you know normally it's like there's one animal that comes out and they like a combo and people are like, oh shit, I missed out on this. Because I think even Billy was talking about it on his stream on Monday with Gundy. He mentioned they were talking about Desert Ghost and Enhancer.
Yeah.
And what was it that he said? I can't remember. Or no, he was talking about Lace, but still, he said that about Lace. He's like, I didn't care about it forever, and Marshall, I'm sure, is going to go off in the comments right now. But yeah, you know, he said, he's like, I kind of slept on that one, like I just, you know, I didn't pay any attention, and then he was like, I saw that what the Supers did, and he's like, then I bought a ton of them.
Yeah,
so, you know, like
it's so true. It's just that like that one combo everyone sees it, and they're like, oh, look at that potential, man. Like,
yeah, I think he said Lace Clown. He was like, yep, gotta have it. Yeah.
Seriously, man.
Yeah,
That's
drive by
one of the
ultramel
genes.
bomb. Yeah, Chris.
That's one of the genes that got me though too, was lace. Like that's a perfect
Mhm.
example of the gene that comes out and you're like, fuck man, there's another one I kind of have to jump
Yep.
on now, and like it just never ends, man. Never ends. But
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, I know Marshall's like probably screaming at home at his screen, telling me to talk about this. What about this? What about this mix?
yeah.
Yeah, because Marshall has got he made some world's first lace stuff. I think it's like a blackhead phantom lace.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that thing's
Jesus.
nuts. If you haven't seen it, man, yeah, check out. I think pretty much any live stream that Marshall's been in recently.
I've seen a couple.
we've asked him to pull that snake out because it is gorgeous, man. And yeah, the supers are just the white lace stuff, and I think the thing I also love about it is that it's very properly named. Like the super, it literally does. It looks like in old ladies' houses, the doilies that they put under everything, that have the lace on the edge. That's literally what it looks like. So it is perfectly named.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, man. It's such a great team.
Mm-hmm.
Such a great team.
Yeah, and Marshall is helping me out. He's getting into Ultramel. I don't think he was thinking of me when he did that, but I'm appreciative of it.
Dude, that's gonna be a sick combo though. I mean, Ultramel looks pretty much good in anything. Like it's, and it's so
but
nice
I think because of those highlights, those white highlights that you get a lot of times in Ultramel, I think the lace is going to go really, really well with that. I'll be stoked to see it.
And that's another thing I'm excited for. I'm really excited that Ultramel is like, it's really starting to pick up again, which is sweet.
Kept telling people, man, nobody wants to listen.
I know, and I don't know if it was the thing with caramel that kind of like was just people off.
It stunted, it definitely stunted it because people speculate so much in this hobby, about everything, and so that'll absolutely, it won't, because obviously it didn't kill the project off, but I just think that it made a lot of people question,
exactly.
And those waters I think were real muddy at the time because of when they came out, and people were, I think. There was people trying to see if they were allelic together, see if they were going to do anything together, if they were compatible, or what was going to happen. And so it was like, I could see, if I was around in the market at that time, I probably would have felt the same way. Like, I'm going to wait this one out and see what's going to happen with it, So
absolutely, man. Which is unfortunate because like we could have been so much further ahead now, but I mean, in a sense, it's kind of nice though because now it's becoming more exciting as we're seeing more projects come out.
I was able to afford to get into it.
And
it's still affordable. Like for anyone that's not working it, like it's still a super affordable project.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a weird one because it's definitely one of those I think where there are certain like lines of it that are better than others, that and they're not necessarily traced all the way back, in a lot of instances. But because I've seen some that do look like caramels, and that does kind of make me wonder if there are people that have caramel in their collection and they think it's Ultramel, because I've seen some, man, that just they dull out so much when they get bigger, but mine don't look that way.
Yeah, exactly. And that could easily happen too, unfortunately, but definitely.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, like after I saw it was Ultramel Pieds, of course, because I'm addicted to Pieds. But when I saw Ultramel Pieds, man, I was like, holy shit, dude, that is intense. Like I remember thinking like I can't imagine how this thing is gonna look as an adult. Like it's, but it's such a great gene, man. Seriously. So
what is it about Pied for you? Is it because everybody's kind of got their preference of Pied, Is it just anything, or is there something? Do you like a certain ratio of pattern to white, or is it just the pattern itself that you like? Because that's it for a lot of people, that no two are the same.
Yeah. That was one of the things that attracted me, was the fact that they come out so different. Like even just a single gene Pied comes out so different. It's all random essentially. I know there's some theories that if you breed high white to high white, you get high white, but I still think it's random in my opinion.
I think most of the big breeders that breed thousands. Like let's go ask Will Banks if he thinks that's how many, because he's breeding for straight production on stuff like that, like pet trade numbers, and I don't. So I don't personally subscribe to that, but
so either. I don't. And I mean, I just feel like after this amount of time, especially, it would have probably become a known fact that it was like that. But I love that randomness. I love, as soon as I saw because I mean, when I first got into it, this was years ago, before like orange cream was a thing, before people
Mm-hmm.
were mixing NG with it, and
Yeah.
now that I'm seeing these OB, YB, NG pieds, like
It's
blows
so
my
crazy.
mind. Yeah, just I can't
And
believe the coloration.
and seeing that stuff in person, man,
Oh my
is a
God.
whole, and that goes for everything in this hobby.
Yes,
But like
true.
the first time I saw like an inch, I think it was a yellow belly inchy Gene X pied.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just doesn't get any better than that. Like, you know, in terms of like a pied that I had ever seen in person, I'm like, that is the most beautiful pied I've ever seen in my life. Like I've seen these things on videos and I've seen people talk about them, but until I saw it in person,
Yes.
man,
It's the
It's just
contrast
nuts.
between that pure white and then you get
Mhm.
like pretty much like orange.
yeah, because that's the thing. It's, you know, I say it all the time that I do worry, and I'll point out Desert Ghost for this, and that's probably going to upset some people, but I worry that we're pushing back towards yellow snakes again.
Yeah.
You know, Kabilka's talked about that before, how, you know, at one point in the 2000s, and it was largely because I think just a lot of the same combos were being made.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, everything had super pastel in it, you know, stuff like that. But I feel like we're starting to get that way again a little bit, where a lot of stuff is just, there's so many genes layered that aren't enhancing, it's just more yellow.
Yep.
But with those, I do like that when you, again, and seeing it in person really changed my mind on it. But there's a gradient of so many different colors. Like if you start
Yes.
looking close at those things,
Absolutely.
each individual scale might have 5 different colors on it.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
in those saddles, and then, you know, surrounded that by just that pure white that's, you know, never gonna fade.
Yep.
I mean, it's just,
It's incredible, man. The gradients, like you were saying, like the gradients between those colors, and you can't. It's so hard to pick up. And like you were saying, like any ball python looks better in person, but it is
Sure.
so hard to pick up those gradients between like a highlighter yellow and then one shade of a highlighter yellow right up against
Yeah.
the scale. So it's the gradients alone is unreal. And then I'm also it's you know, I love those you know, the light oranges, yellows, but I also really like blackhead Mojave pieds and bringing in the dark genes like the Suma pied and stuff like that. Those ones to me as well. Like if we can bring more pattern back into a lot of those snakes,
yes.
I think those are equally as phenomenal. Like, I mean, they're, especially the blackhead Mojave pieds. Once I started seeing those ones, I was like, damn, man, even the dark genes are starting to like really look nice. So
Yeah, I'm really upset. I missed out on a chance to get it was a pastel blackhead het ultramel. The pastel, I'm like, okay, take it or leave it, and not because I'm a hater of pastel, but I already have a pastel leopard het ultramel that's ready to go, and I've also just bought I bought a pastel clown het ultramel male. So I'm gonna start making my own double hets and stuff with that guy.
Man.
But yes, I mean, I don't need the pastel, but I want the blackhead.
Yes.
But it was Kabilka produced it, and like I make a point, you know, because you know he's just as big time Christian. I know he goes to church every Sunday, so I make a point not to text him on Sundays if it's about it, even regardless of what's going on. But it was like 10:30 on a Saturday night when somebody sent me it, and I was like, I'm not waiting till Monday. So I literally texted him at like 10:30. I was like, hey man, I just saw, you know, that you listed this snake. I'd love to go ahead and get it from you. You know, hit me back on Monday. You know, I told him, I know you're gonna be busy tomorrow.
Yeah.
And within like 5 minutes of that text, he took it down off Morph Market. So I was like, okay, one of two things happened. He's either taking me at my word and he's pulling it down for me, which I would have been like, you know, blown away, because there's no reason for him to, you know, do that for me. Like I've bought like 4 animals from him, you know, but anyway, so I was like, it's either that or he fucking sold it in between the time that he posted it and now. He texted me on Monday, he's like, dude, that snake sold within 10 minutes of me putting it on Morph Market.
Holy crap, man.
I was like, man, but I you know, so I was upset, but I also love that, because I'm like, other people are paying close attention to the same stuff that I'm paying attention to, and so it's validating, you know.
No, that's,
have you had those moments yourself where stuff like that, like, have you had, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, like, have you had that moment in any projects that you're working where you're just like, this really is, like, I'm really onto something, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know, like, specifically yet, since I'm just coming back into it, obviously. But I feel that has happened where there are certain, like, I would say for me the biggest would be calico, because
Yes.
I feel like years ago when I first started back in like 2013 or so, I was like, man, Calico's sick. Like, I can't wait to see what Calico looks like in Pied. And that was like my main focus was back then. I was like, man, Calico is going to be insane in Pied. And it took so long for someone to make it. You know, oh yeah. See, like,
I love this girl, dude. This is and
amazing.
She's just a pastel calico. You know, it's a simple combo, and she's big. I mean, she's probably almost 2,000 grams. And again, like, this is one of those snakes for me. Like, I got her when I was kind of just first getting into it, and it was the same thing. The first time I saw a calico, I was like, why isn't this in everything?
I know.
You know, like,
it's just not in fucking every man. It's
So yeah, like it's neat too, because the same thing, like you don't really get it the same way every time. You know, they don't all look the same. They're all a little bit different, and it's the same thing with her. Like, you know, like in her sides, like you can't see on camera, but every individual scale is a little bit different. You know, there's like, oh, there's some white scales and there's some yellow scales, and then these ones have some gradients of orange, or like, oh, this scale is literally orange and it has a little brown dot in the center of it for no reason. You know, they're so variable.
Very, like, and that's another thing I like about calicos is like that pastel calico as an adult, even like a snake that's on, like some would say, on the lower end, that as an adult still looks amazing.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So it's like again, kind of go back to what we were talking about with, like, sorry, I'm gonna fill up the water.
No worries.
Going back to she's been freaking chugging water lately. She's been breeding, so maybe that's something to do with it. But I mean, I literally just filled her water last night, and she's not spilling it, so she's clearly must be thirsty. But yeah, like that. Going back to like the pet trade stuff. Like, I think I paid probably like $200 for her or something like that as a baby. You know, like, and she's gorgeous.
Exactly.
And then and like the campfire stuff. Have you seen that?
Oh my god.
It's nuts.
Absolutely amazing.
It's
like,
nuts.
Who thought like that? And it's not even that intense for combo. Like, it's nothing.
No, it's a super easy combo. And I'll be honest with you, dude. If I had chocolate in my racks to make it, dude, I'd make those every year. I would make them every year.
And you would sell. They would sell, man. Easy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. Like, it's just, you know, and that, I think that one, and like I said, I remember back in the day just being like, how has this not been brought into Pied yet? How has no one? Like, they both have that random white spot, so it made sense to me. Like, why aren't we bringing this into Pied? You know, and if I didn't get out of it back then, that was one of the things I was trying to push towards. But it just goes to show, like, an animal like that, as simple as it is, as an adult, if no one knew prices or anything like that, you would think that animal would cost a lot more than it does.
Yes, because I'll tell you, when I'm showing people the snakes in my racks, you know, just people that are not snake people.
Yeah.
Every time I pull that girl out, people are like, "What in the hell is that?" Like, it blows their mind. You know, it's just it's same thing with Pied. You're like, how's that even real? Like, that it doesn't even make sense.
This must be like 1 in a million. Like, what are the odds of this? You know, it's so
like, actually, they're a dime a dozen. They're super inexpensive, and you can get them everywhere.
Yeah, like, even my wife, the first time, like, when I'd started getting back into it and I was getting all these snakes and stuff, like, when I showed her the pastel calico, she was like, that's like my favorite snake, hands down. And I was like, that's probably one of the cheaper snakes I've purchased. Like, it's super common. They're not like,
they're just cool, man.
I love that. I love that about the hobby. I love how, you know, everyone kind of picks their favorite snake. And, you know, as we dive deeper into it, we become nerds and we're like, oh man, double recessive, triple recessive. Like, let's keep stacking. Like, but we can't forget about that simple stuff either, you know. And I think that's super important, you know. I mean, obviously, like, you know, there's the big guys like the Wilbankses of the world, and those guys are, you know, they're breeding for production of like a lot of different things, which is great. Like, I think that's awesome. I think, you know, like Barczyk has said it before, that it's like, you know, it still blows his mind that he can walk into any like Petco or whatever in the world, and there's like an albino or like a Pied, or, you know, like it's crazy to think that we've come that far, and so it's going to be really neat to see kind of what that looks like going forward, you know. Absolutely, man, and it is good for the hobby, like, because I mean, you know, it's putting it into that position where everyday people get a chance to look at these animals, and you know, especially with kids, like the younger generation, it gets them into it. Seeing an animal like a Pied at a pet store, like, when I was a kid, that would have blew my mind. I would have been begging to get that snake, right? Yeah. So I've talked about it before, and I won't go too long on this, but like I like when I got into ball pythons, you know, I found king snake Yeah.
And it was too weird to me to think about the idea that I could just order a snake off the internet and somebody would mail it to me. And so I was like, all right, this has got to be a scam, and I'm like a paranoid person anyways. And this was, like we're both like kids of the '90s, where like you had to worry about like putting in any information on the internet or whatever.
Absolutely, man.
Not that you don't now, but it was way worse back then, and especially it was like really drilled into our heads from the very start that like everything was a scam, everything was anyways.
Yeah.
So I ended up with just a normal from the local pet store that I probably paid the same amount for then that I could have gotten something obviously way better online, but I was just like, it's too good to be true. There's no way. Like this normal's cost me $100 at the pet store. You're telling me for $100 I can get an albino? No, something's wrong. Or just whatever. Like just using that as an example, but
no, it's so true though. It's so true. Like that's why it's so, when you see it in person, you're like, well, I'm here. I'm literally, I can see the animal. I know the condition, and I know it's not a scam. Like it's right in front. But
man, it's just funny, how far things come. So I want to touch back on your boa stuff. So were the boas that you had, were they just normals?
Yeah, just regular DCI, I believe.
I kind of figured. Yeah. And then what was like once you had babies, what was kind of the avenue that you took for that? Because you hear that a lot of times from people where they have these animals that end up accidentally breeding or whatever. And they don't really, you don't really have a plan. And the reason I bring it up is because I feel like a lot of new keepers in the hobby, like especially the ball python business, like you buy these snakes and you put them together and then you have eggs and you're like, oh crap, I have eggs. Like what? Like nobody knows me. Like how am I going to sell these babies? So I'm just kind of curious on like how you dealt with that.
Yeah, so I mean, the first time, obviously it was a surprise because we had no intention. It was more so, and I didn't think that it was going to happen. Like I didn't even know at the time that boas
was never a thought
or anything. I just didn't think it was going to happen. They were what I thought to be younger. Especially at that stage, I'd always heard that boas get massive and she would have to get huge before she had babies, all that. So came down one morning, just noticed that there was a very large gooey mess. So I was like terrified because I just saw it at the front, and I was like, holy shit, what the hell is this? Like it's all gooey and yellow things everywhere. Yeah. And then as I looked deeper, I was like, man, she had babies. Like, holy crap, like freaking out. Like I was super
excited.
That's
so freaking cool though. Yeah, that's so awesome.
So then right away, what I did is I just got like a Rubbermaid container, started going on my computer, laptop at the time, and started researching like what I could.
Like, what do I do with these things? Yeah.
Man, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do? So I put them in a tub with a little bit of water and tried to wash them off. Then after that, I dried them off, cleaned them off or whatever, kept them together in that tub. I put the tub inside the enclosure. And then I had heat and all that. Basically, I ran to the pet store as soon as they opened, and I grabbed, those like little cricket feeder tubs or whatever.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's like it's like when you go to the beach. I don't know if you guys even have beaches in Canada. I don't know. I mean, I guess you do, but they're probably cold as hell. But like down here, like especially in this like the South, like in Florida or whatever, like you go to the beach as a kid. If you're into animals, like they sell hermit crabs everywhere. Yes. And like that's what they would give you for your little hermit crabs, a tiny little snap on top. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Those are them, man. Those are them. Yeah, I bought like 15 of those. I got myself a cable. Unfortunately, at the time, had no idea. Once again, didn't have them set up with the thermostat. Unfortunately, but grabbed the heat cable, ran the heat cable. I had like this 6-foot table, and just ran the heat cable down. Had them all sitting in there.
It sounds like you did pretty good considering like you had. Like an hour prior to that, had no idea what you were doing at all.
No idea. Had
that's not bad.
Like we had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So we got them all set up, and then after that, I did a little bit more research, and then ended up buying like this melamine rack off of Kijiji, which is Canadian Craigslist.
Yeah. Yep. Canadian Craigslist. Yeah.
And then so I got like a little hatchling rack with a thermostat, just like one of those. Inkbird thermostats.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yep.
So I got one of those, and then they were set up in there. So at least they were separate. They had controlled heat, and then we just kind of went from there. And they ate. I think we let them shed. I think it was about a week or so when they shed, and then they were like all perfect. First go eating frozen thawed. I didn't even bother with live. Yeah. Because as I was reading, I was like, they most boas are like ready to go off the hop.
And what year was this roughly? Do you remember?
I think it was 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's impressive though, man. I mean, like I said, like to you know, for somebody that you had no intention of breeding something, you just wake up, have babies all of a sudden, and then you went from that having, you know, 2 boas to, okay, now you've got a melamine rack, you got all these babies that you're now feeding and getting on a frozen thaw. I mean, like I said, that's awesome, man.
And I think
you got just thrown into the fire.
It was like 2009. I was like, wait, 2014 doesn't make sense. 2009.
That's impressive.
We had a litter every second year with them after that. So we had 3 litters altogether. But that was the first litter, and yeah, it went really well. I was, like I said, I was shocked initially, but once we got the rack, I felt a little bit better. I felt bad at first because, like, man, I feel so like unprepared. Yeah. Like, you know, I felt bad for them because I've always loved animals. I don't want to hurt.
Yeah,
them.
You want everything to be done the right way.
Yeah. So, but it worked out. They fed well. I think we gave them like at least, I'm assuming like 5 or 6 meals. It's hard for me to remember now, but I think we did 5 or 6 meals, and then I was able, luckily, to sell them all on Kijiji. I didn't do sales anywhere else.
And that, I guess that makes sense for that timeline too, because you know back then, I mean, I don't know how Kijiji is for you guys, but like Craigslist now is like the worst freaking place in the world for
absolutely. I agree. It's the same with Kijiji, unless
I figured
there's some bigger breeders who do put their stuff on there, but they also throw their Instagram, and you know, most of them now we know of. So like, you know, even
it's a different thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, I had no problem. You know, because they were normal, I wasn't pricing them for crazy amounts, so they were an easy kind of go-to pet. You know, it was like, I think we did $100, and I would take 80 for them or whatever. So, you know, they weren't $800 snakes trying to sell them on Craigslist. So it was a pretty much easy sell for me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, it just kind of blows my mind. Like I said, that like, you know, to go like literally 0 to 100, but I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it really was, man. Like, and I loved those boas. Like, every time anyone come over, like friends and stuff when I was younger, like it was just like that badass thing where it's like, dude, check out my boas. Like, we had this massive tank, and it was all decked out, and
I mean, an 8-foot tank. I mean, that's not small. Like that's,
oh my god,
that's these two side by side. These are 4 foot behind me.
It literally, we had like it was a rental house, but it was like this 3rd level, but it was just basically kind of an extra living room. But it like literally took up the whole wall. It took 4 of us to carry it in. I don't believe it was an old fish tank, because I feel like it would have been super heavy. But it wasn't too bad. That
had to just been something that somebody made or something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely. It was a custom made, and we got it off of like when we went and saw the boas. We looked on Kijiji once again, and some guy was trying to get rid of it. He's like, if you come with a couple of friends and pick it up, it's yours for like, I can't remember the price, but dude, it was a sick tank. It was really nice.
Because I was gonna say, I'd love to see a setup like that even now. You know, like I was thinking about that tonight. Like I've got to get a bigger cage for this girl. I mean, she's using her basking shelf, and she like barely fits on that basking shelf even, because when I ordered it, she was like actually like she kind of hit her growth spurt now, and she was smaller than she is now when I ordered it. So, but so I'm like thinking I got to get a 6 foot cage, but an 8 foot cage is freaking big. Because like I remember the first time I saw a 6 foot cage, that I was like, that's way bigger than it was in my head. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure, absolutely, and like
it's a lot of space.
It is, and I've also been into fish for a very long time. I'm into monster fish, so I've had big tanks and stuff. Like I have a 6 foot tank downstairs. It's not being used.
Okay.
Currently. But that 8 foot tank was something else, man. It was really impressive just to see it visually, and we had, you know, like the works. We had logs and all plants. We had a fogger and yada yada. But,
that's what I was picturing in my head. Yeah, like a very like 90s, early 2000s setup, which is cool. Like I think we need to get back to like some median point of that. You know, I think would be really great. Just those really beautiful displays.
Mixed in with it, you know, have proper temperatures and stuff. But having that display, and especially with something like a retic, that would just be you know.
Well, and I think you probably benefited largely through having that size. You know what I mean? There's where the animals were able to just kind of regulate themselves and move themselves around, and same thing with being able to cohab. I think you probably pulled that off.
Yeah.
And, appreciate you, Bradley. Hey, Summer, by the way. Summer's in the chat. She actually works for our buddy Mr. Kabilka.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for everyone for stopping by. Sorry, I'm kind
Yeah,
of
seriously,
on
thank you guys.
and stuff.
Elliot and Mindy, I see you guys going back and forth. Y'all are freaking great.
All the usuals.
Dude, Jeremy from Cure, if anybody that's not following him, like he's got a ton of stuff that's gonna be coming out in the next couple of years that's gonna blow some people's minds. Not necessarily even ball pythons. He's got some great ball pythons, but he's got some pretty crazy like Patias and stuff like that are gonna be pretty mind blowing. Like he said he was sending Bradley and I some pictures. We've got a group chat today, and dude, he's got some crazy snakes, man. They're just like I was driving and like almost swerved off the road because I was like really looking at the color gradient of this snake as it went down its body. Like it starts out one color and goes in another. It's just it's just neat, man. And see, like going back to what we were talking about with like getting distracted with projects, like I'm bad about like I'm like, oh, look at that species and look at that species. Yeah. Like, you know, like you said something about the African house snakes. You know, like those are making a comeback, a big like push now.
Yeah.
I don't know how they are in Canada, but you know, like it's some are the freaking weight of tanks. Yeah, it's even these PVC enclosures to move those things around. Like and these are 4 foots. Like I probably couldn't move anything bigger than a 4 foot by myself.
Oh no, they're insane.
Not safely.
They're insane, man. Especially the fish. Like I said, I work with a lot of fish. Tanks, and the fish glass is super thick.
It's so thick. Yeah.
It's no joke, man. Like the 6-footer downstairs. Like we haven't even been using it since I've had because I had an Asian arowana and stingrays for quite some time, and I've been meaning to move it, but I'm like slacking on it because I'm like, fuck, man, I don't want to move that from the basement. It is so heavy. Like it is absolutely insane. It's unfortunate but it's nice with these new PVC enclosures because the animals are getting more what they need, and then it saves our backs from being absolutely destroyed. So it's still nice to have that front panel at least visible.
Oh, for sure, and it's just better insulated in the whole nine. Yeah, I mean, everything's getting better, man, and that's like I said. I think that's what I'm almost most excited about just every day because like you forget about it sometimes, but it's just like seeing how far we've come, and then just like new companies, new people popping up all the time with just improvements and making things easier and easier and easier for us. Like, have you seen these guys focused cubed habitats?
I was just as you were saying it, I was like, I bet you it's gonna be those things. Yeah, that's mad.
They're so nice. So cool. I literally sent them a message on Instagram. I was like, I just want to let you guys know, like everything you're doing is awesome. I was like, and I'm just like really excited to literally see what you guys are gonna do in the next year.
Absolutely.
And they were just like, dude, thank you so much. And they're working their butts off.
Yeah, they are definitely.
Like, I was stoked to see I guess they're sponsoring MJ's podcast now, which is cool. So like really getting their names out there.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, man. Those things are just incredible. Like that is something that you could keep in a very modern house, and it would go with the flow for sure. Like and it's really
the paint schemes and stuff they do. That kind of stuff's like right up my alley. And they do both. They can have it like super clean and a little more like simple looking, if that more traditional. And then they've got the crazy like angular window cutouts and like splatter paint and all. I think that stuff speaks to me, man. I think it's great.
I agree 100%. Like I said, that kind of thing, I feel like it always looks good no matter what your setup is because it looks clean, it's well built. Yeah. It's just really nice. That's a good call.
I'm excited to see what they'll do because I would love them to get into like the animal plastics style of because they don't have a lot of stuff that's bigger. I would love to have somebody give animal plastics a run for their money. Not because I don't like animal plastics. I love their quality. I just wish that there was a secondary option that had as good of standards. That didn't make me wait 7 months to get a cage.
Yeah,
it's
and
very
that's
frustrating.
The thing. And that's why it's important for competition. Competition's important because it keeps both everyone on each side. It keeps them pushing and wanting to do better and grow. And competition is healthy. As long as we're going about it in a mature
healthy way,
then it's healthy for sure.
It's just like Repti Chip and Coca Blocks, man. If there was only one provider, one, not that they would, but it'd be easy to just mark things up, way higher than what they are. Like whereas right now they're both relatively the same price, and it's like, oh, one started offering free shipping, well now the other one has to offer free shipping. The consumer wins no matter what. And those guys are still making their money, and everybody's happy and just having fun with it. And I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Like Pro Products heat panels, I talk about them all the time. Like they make the best heat panels on the market, and they're like one.
Oh, I think you're on mute. Can you guys still hear me? You can hear me? Okay, I can't hear you yet.
Give me 2 seconds, Sal. I'm gonna I gotta turn on echo cancellation really quick and see why my AirPods have disconnected. But anyways, but yeah, I think that's super important, to have that competition. But yeah, like Pro Heat Products is what I was talking about. Like their heat panels are amazing, but for whatever reason, like they're very much not up with the times in terms of like the way they communicate with their customer base and this, that, and the other. And it's really just, I think they've never had to, they haven't been forced into that growth.
Right.
So it's just one of those weird things.
Yeah, and that's why like it helps to have that competition, because it like I said, it pushes companies to grow in the aspects where they're lacking, because they're like, oh man, we have to keep up with whatever the latest thing is, because as new companies come in, they're striving to do things that other companies haven't or can't do. So that's kind of like their pivot point, where it's like, well, these guys don't do this, so let's introduce this. This company doesn't do online stuff, so let's push online stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, literally, like that guy, and again, like their quality is amazing. Like once you get them on the phone, their ordering process is super simple. But like they still literally offer a discount if you'll pay by money order instead of paying by credit card, because they're trying to avoid the processing fees. I'm like, what year is it? First of all,
yeah.
Second of all, like, why doesn't, like, you don't even have, like, you barely even have a website, like,
yeah.
Why can't I just order one of these things online and then you just ship it to me like every other product that exists in the world right now? So yeah, like if somebody figures out a way to make a heat panel that's of the same level of quality as they do, like, they're in trouble.
yeah, and it's unfortunate too, because it's like, dude, if you just like upgraded your website and like kind of came more with the times, because that's where everything's pushing. I enjoy purchasing stuff in person. I really do.
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime I can, I absolutely love to do that.
But it's, and especially now, but even prior to COVID and stuff, like it was already going to online. Like everyone's pushing online stuff. At least to have it as a solid option is important. So
yeah. Bradley says, check out Ed Mannix of Snake House Enclosures. They're based in Louisiana. He said make some nice cages. I'll have to look into that, Bradley. Yeah, because like there's a number of people that are popping up. Like, what's the other one? Big Sky Reptiles and Enclosures. Like do you guys have anybody in Canada that makes PVC stuff?
Yeah, as far as I know, and I'm very fortunate because they're in the same city as me, but Cornell's World.
Yeah.
They're.
I always forget about them just because, again, they're Canadian, and so I'm like, I'm not going to pay to import.
I was keeping up with all the American guys, but I know there's great builders out there. But I would say they're up there probably.
Dude, I love their incubators. The ones that Billy uses, they're so freaking cool. With the readouts built on, and and did I see they do the same thing with their racks? They have some kind of a readout on the racks.
I think they can do it for you.
I just thought that was I just liked that it was clean.
Yeah, they're into custom stuff, and I was fortunate enough to grab one of those incubators, and I'm like super stoked with it.
I think I remember seeing you had mentioned that.
Yeah,
that you had got like a bigger one than what you really needed or something.
Yep. Yeah, I got. Yeah. I'm like, part of me is like, I'm glad I got it for the future, but like now that I'm like, when I look at it in person, I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. This could take me like years and years to fill, like years. I'll be good forever, which is nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever really outgrow it. I mean, that'd be sweet if I did, but I doubt I'll ever outgrow that thing.
Yeah.
But it is really nice. It keeps temps and humidity just perfect. I've been letting it run for the last 2 months just to make sure, and it's been solid. So I'm definitely happy with it.
Yeah, like I said, those of all the ones I've seen, like the sea serpents that we have here, I think are the closest thing that we have to the Cornell's World style, and that's
Yeah,
probably what I'll ultimately end up with.
they look
Um,
nice from what I've seen.
yeah, they're great. I was able to see them in person at the Arlington NARBC, and yeah, I mean, it looked just as I kind of expected based on everything that I hear
Yeah,
around from people in terms of quality and stuff. The biggest thing for me on these things, man, was just the way that the way they like miter the edges on them. Like they literally shave like a groove into every single edge to where there's literally no way for you to not have them lined up perfectly. But
yeah,
it's
that's
like
amazing.
the tolerance is like it's like a millimeter that they shave off.
Jesus, man.
And just like I don't know, just like I said, the way they just basically just fall together
Yeah,
was just super impressive to me for anybody that's ever like worked in any kind of like making things or building things or like manufacturing processes. When you see these things come out of the box and just all the little details, you're like, wow, that took a lot
yeah.
of thought
Well,
and
yeah,
planning.
and those things, it makes the difference, man, because it's impressive when you start, especially when you have to stack stuff and it
Yeah,
is that close and it's like
yeah,
fitting together. You're like, how do you guys even do this, man?
right,
Like with big machines and everything, like it's
yeah,
so
right.
precise.
And they make them at a production level where if they made 100 of these cages, you could stack them 100 high, and they
Yeah,
would all line up perfectly. And they have dowels that they machine into the tops of them that where you can dowel them together so that they don't slide.
right, right, right.
And the dowels are perfectly lined up times
It's
however
impressive.
many you want to go. So just that's the little stuff that I can appreciate that I think the smaller guys that are out there are going to struggle to probably recreate
Yeah,
that level
unfortunately.
of accuracy.
Yeah.
And but that's the stuff that I want. You
I
know,
know
like,
that's the
so
same here, man. Same here,
I
because
don't want
that
to give
that
up on
makes the
that.
difference, right?
Yeah,
It makes
so
the difference.
it's gonna take somebody with some big money probably to come in that can pay for some serious machinery
Yeah.
to be able to replicate that. It's just like Freedom Breeder. Like why doesn't somebody else just come in and start making them? Well, because the the machines that they use to crank these things out are millions of dollars.
Yeah,
Like
that's the thing, right? And I even it's funny because on Billy's last live, I had asked, I don't know if it was the last live or one of the I can't remember what platform it was on, anyways, but I
yeah.
was like, how come no one has made like a metal rack business in Canada?
Yeah. I
And he
think it
just
was on it was on his last Patreon, the question one
yes,
that he did last week. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, how come no one's, and he kind of had a good answer. He's like, it's so much money to get into that
Hmm.
that I just don't think anyone has really made it that far into it. Like
No.
it's so true. Like those machines to develop it on that high of a scale,
Yeah.
I just don't know if there's anyone willing to put that money in yet.
No. No, because
You know?
I've got a buddy, like I used to work in metal fabrication.
Oh,
And
cool.
I'm not a welder by any means. I was like the bottom the bottom of the barrel. I did a lot of the painting and like finish work,
Okay. Yeah.
because that's more like kind of my skill set, but or
Yeah.
somewhat. But I've got a buddy that he's a fabricator. Like he's a master. Anything you want made, like he can literally like picture it in his head and just make it happen. He's just good
Oh,
that way.
amazing.
And man, to make like he could make me one if I asked him to,
Yeah.
but for the amount of even just the material cost alone
Yeah.
would be
Oh,
over
dude.
$1,000 just in stainless because I don't think people realize how much that stuff costs.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
so it's just
And
one of those crazy
that was
things.
my whole thing. I was like, I always just thought in my head, I was like, it's probably just simply because metal costs so much, just in
Hmm.
general.
Hmm.
That's before you're fabricating and buying these machines that are going to do it on that high scale.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's totally true,
And
man.
try to hire a welder for 8 hours out of the day to weld one together.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
not exactly, man. It's just not feasible, and I'm sure
no.
the numbers
So
just don't add up at the end of the day, and that's why Freedom Breeder and ARS, they just
yeah.
they've been there, man, because they have these machines and they have it going,
But I will say, man, I still think that that stuff's coming. Like there is going to come a day, and I don't think people realize that. So like you're into fish, so you kind of know. Like I look at what's happening in like the saltwater market and stuff like that, and I think that that's like 10 years ahead of where we're at with the reptile hobby, like especially in ball
absolutely,
pythons, because
absolutely,
the
it's
amount of money and the
oh,
number of major manufacturers that have jumped in and
yep,
just like raised the bar
oh yeah,
on what can be done, and but also the amount of money they were willing to invest
yep.
because they realized how much money was being spent on
It's
fish.
huge. Oh, it's huge, man.
And so that's all it's going to take. It's just a matter of time. It's literally a matter of time before some, major investment group or some major company comes around and they're like, oh, wait, you're telling me there's people that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on snakes?
Yep.
Okay, so they're going to say, okay, they have the money to spend that on these snakes. Well, how much are they willing to spend to house them? Yeah, it's literally just a matter of time. It takes that piece of information getting to the right person.
Yep.
And this whole thing's going to blow wide open. And like I said, people don't realize it.
No, and I think that's a great, like, saltwater is a great example of that. And it like, I don't really know how many people are into saltwater stuff, but yeah, that industry is just absolutely insane. Like, even like, you're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars for one light, and that's just the light. That's not including all the equipment.
Yeah.
And the equipment is just like, you like, saltwater is probably one of the more expensive hobbies, I would say, out there.
Yeah, especially for like how small it's, like, the setup seems. Like, to have one tank, you could spend literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars if you wanted to.
Yep, absolutely, man. Even in just like the coral alone, like one piece of coral, you see some of these, like, it's a cutoff of a mushroom, and it's like $10,000 for just this little tiny coral.
Yeah. It's exactly what Bradley's talking about in the comments. He said, what's going on in coral right now is nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Like, some of the coral, and I haven't personally dove into saltwater too much. I've had a couple setups, but just even the simple setups, man. You like simple setup, I'm looking at $3,000. Like, it's for a 10-gallon tank, but it's all those lights and coral, and but that's a good point. I think and that would be great if the industry did get to that point one day where, and it is going there. I mean, look what we were talking about with the 90s style tank, it's progressive.
Well, and with bioactive becoming just more and more popular by the day.
Yeah.
So one thing I've talked about, a lot of, again, people that aren't into saltwater won't necessarily know this, but there's literally reef controllers, right? Like, those have come really far in the last even like 10 years. Cause like I had my first and only saltwater tank in like 2012.
Yeah.
And reef controllers were still pretty basic then, but like, literally, so you have again, I had one that, and I still want to try to do this. So there was one that's called Reef Angel, and it was real simple, but it was open source. And so that's why it was less expensive. It was only like $250, but it came with a box, which was basically just a big, like, surge protector. Yeah. But each outlet was able to be programmed and controlled with this little handheld controller. And I could write my own code on my computer to turn those things on and off depending on certain scenarios.
Right.
And it had a temperature sensor, it had a pH sensor, it had all sorts of stuff. So it's like, you could set that thing to where, in theory, relating it to reptiles, I'm like, okay, so if you had like a bioactive enclosure for some crazy snake or some crazy lizard, you could set it to have a humidity monitor that monitors your humidity. So it's like, oh, your humidity dropped below a certain threshold. Okay, cool. Missed the tank. Or turn on this fogger. Or, oh, your humidity's too high. Turn on this fan. And what people don't realize is how simple that stuff is now. And how accessible and how inexpensive all that stuff is becoming.
Yes.
And that's the stuff that I get excited about, man. Well, I just think
100%.
we're this hobby is man, there's just so much. There's so much that's coming in the next 5 to 10 years.
Seriously, man. And that's the thing, like, and as it progresses, the more that people are doing this on a daily basis, the more we get to that point in the day where we're like, man, I just wish this could be easier by doing this.
Yeah.
And then that idea sparks, and there's other people thinking of that idea. And like you said, the simple controller, how long has saltwater tanks been controlled by these things where they're checking pH?
And we're not doing it yet.
Yeah. And like something as simple as humidity, and think how awesome that would be attached to your incubator with an exact signal like that. And I mean, we're getting there with these little devices and stuff, but one massive controller that connects to your phone at all times, and enclosures, bioactive enclosures. And there was a company called Biopod. I don't know if they ever heard of them.
I'm familiar. Yeah. I saw them real briefly on like I think it was from like one of the big shows, like maybe NARBC, Tenley or something like that. Like somebody featured them like really briefly.
Yeah. Yeah. And they unfortunately went under, and I don't know if they came out too soon, maybe.
Maybe.
But they had a good concept, and they had, they even had a little camera inside the enclosure, so you could check on your animal wherever you were. The thing could grow peppers, or you could put a crested gecko in it. Like, it could do pretty much anything. Sensors everywhere. It was a brilliant idea. So, if someone takes that idea and just progresses with it, we're getting there. We are getting there.
And again, I think if you could do that where you could apply it to any enclosure, because I'm not kidding. I mean, I at one point I still have that Reef Angel controller out there, and it broke. I left it sitting in my shed, like like terrible conditions. Like, I'm in the south, so like I'm sure it's just corroded on the inside, so it's not working. But I could, because I looked into it, and that company's still around. They still exist, and they still support that product. But they do now have a humidity monitor, and so I'm like, man, and again, it's open source. I'm like, I can write the code for this thing to literally turn lights on and off, which is simple. It's just on off, so that's easy enough in the coding. I think that's actually built in, because obviously it would normally control lights for an aquarium, and I had it all programmed running my whole aquarium.
Right.
But I'm like, man, if I wanted to, I could build this all on my own for like relatively cheap.
Yeah.
And just like I've debated on making like a whole YouTube series about doing that, like how to convert one of these things into controlling a bioactive setup. And I've never done anything with bioactive, but just the idea of it being like automated like that, I just think it's freaking cool, man. I love stuff like that.
Man. And that was one of the nice things with saltwater tanks, is just watching like the automation of it, like with especially with the lights, man. You're just sitting there, and all of a sudden the lights are slowly rising, like sunrise, like it's slowly ramping up. And you're watching the coral slowly open and all that. Like, it's very interesting, and to see that in an enclosure, and especially with something like a retic, like that, to me would be very impressive. Just
because that's exactly what I was thinking about doing it with, because I've got a 3x2x2 enclosure. And I've got a pure super dwarf that would be really great size for that cage, I think. And it would be tall enough to where I could make it a little bit more arboreal.
Right.
But yeah, I think it would be freaking cool, man. If I could wire it up to where like it had a really neat light that again, that controller would just like flick on and flick off, and set it to where like I had like, a mist system if it needed to be, just to control the humidity and stuff. I just think it'd be a really neat proof of concept that I think, people could get behind. I don't know. Like I said, I'm always thinking of like, just where there's opportunity, and I think that's a huge opportunity. There's got to be some kind of reptile control, just like Spyderco. They're headed, or is it Spyderco? It's not Spyderco. That's Knives. Spider Robotics.
Yes.
With the new spider web. Like, I thought that was a huge step forward that we should have had 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's always that was really weird to me. I was like, how is this just coming out now? Like, I figured, something like that would have come out. Like, I'm glad it did. It's, again, we're going the right way with it, but
for sure.
Yeah, something so simple that the technology has been there for a long time. But it's just taking these bigger companies to catch up and get into it. Like you said, as soon as people realize how big this market is now becoming, especially, even though it's been here. But now it's really becoming, it's becoming strong. And with social media, it's only getting stronger now.
Yep.
And
it's interesting because, and what are your thoughts on this? I kind of probably already know, because you're like me. You're just an overly positive person in general. But like, I feel like there's so many people out there that are kind of almost complaining about guys like Miguel and people like that are like, they're like, oh, you're like shining a little too much light on this thing that I love, like you're making it a little too mainstream. Like, I don't want the Kardashians to own a ball python one day or something. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I do think that there's like probably a line that could be crossed, like, but I feel like it's a ship that would right itself anyways. But like, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it being, the thing is, I think the more people who get into it, ultimately, the better it is. Yeah. And, a lot of people, unfortunately, people really like the comeback kid story of like, oh, I started from the ground and I had to work my way up and I had to get a pastel first and breed it to a spider to make a bumblebee and yada, yada. But like, if someone worked hard their whole life and saved their money and then they want to get into it that way, you're still... like, as long as you're appreciating the animals and you're breeding them properly in their house properly, there's nothing wrong with coming into it with money or, showing everyone how great they are, because ultimately the more people we get into it, the more everyone is going to do better, because then we have more option to sell. Not everyone is making the same stuff. Yeah, a lot of us are trying to make Pompeii or whatever you're trying to make, right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of people trying to make it, but at the end of the day, everyone is still making stuff that no one else is making. Like, we're still seeing new snakes coming out all the time. So I don't think, shedding light on the industry is bad necessarily. I do think there is a line, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty like introverted person and shy.
Yeah.
Like so social media is kind of hard for me to get into, but
Sure.
I like talking about snakes. I like talking to people about reptiles in general. So I think getting the word out there, like I said, it's not a bad thing, as long as you're doing it right. And I don't think Miguel's doing anything wrong. He seems like a really nice guy. I haven't talked to him or anything like that, but I watch all of his videos and stuff, and I think he worked hard his whole life to get where he is. So that money he put in, I don't think he just kind of pulled it out of nowhere. And I mean, even if he did, there's nothing wrong with that. He got into it the way he wanted to get into it, right? I mean,
and I think the other side of that too is like, even if, like you said, even if he did, like, let's just use a hypothetical person. Like, let's say some guy showed up tomorrow on YouTube and all of a sudden had $100,000 worth of animals and isn't, or 200 or more, because again, the reality is, and what is, people need to understand, like, there's an entire economy that we're a very small part of. Like, there are literally millions of dollars that exchanges hands in ball pythons alone. That's not even talking about other species. Exactly. and just the reptile keeping in general. There's millions of dollars that are spent on isopods, which is just boggles my mind to think about still, because I only kind of recently realized just how much money people spend on bugs. But you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't realize how big this thing is, and so it is there. There's going to be those people, and there have been those people.
Absolutely.
And that, like, Billy's talked about it before, like how he said that he has seen it before, where a guy will come in with a bunch of money and he'll be out in 3 years, or 4 years, because he doesn't realize how much work it is, or he doesn't really fully understand exactly what he's getting into, or, or whatever.
Absolutely.
But I think that we're going to start seeing that more often, and I think that you're going to probably see less of those people fail too.
Yeah.
Because they're, again, going back to, just quoting Billy again, like, I suppose they're freaking expensive. You're absolutely right, Joe. How he has said, like, the information is so much more available now. I've said it numerous times. I feel like in almost every stream that I'm on when any of this comes up, but it's like, it's almost like you have no excuse to fail at this hobby anymore, unless you're just lazy, outside of just literally not wanting to do the work. There's no reason for anybody to not be able to, and I don't mean to, like, dumb it down, like, oh, anybody can do this, but, like, really, like, the information's out there, like, the help is out there.
That's exactly it.
If you really want to be successful at this stuff.
And people are like, that's the thing. Like, back in the day, you had to push people to get the information. Now people are pushing the information to get to you. Like, it's literally being, it's so available. Like, everyone, and it's such great, like, for someone who's making YouTube videos, like, it's great to be able to make a video to try and teach people things, and you're always like, for me, I'm always like, oh, in my experience or in my opinion, because I don't know everything. I'm still learning.
No.
And, if you think you know everything, you're a fool. You should try to learn something new every single day.
Yes. Don't
pretend you know everything, because it doesn't do anything for you. So learning.
The second you think you kind of, you really think you kind of know what's going on or whatever, or you really think you know a lot, not even if you think you know everything, but if the second you think you know a lot and you kind of stop paying attention, even just a little bit, like, you kind of slow, it might not even be intentional, but you're kind of screwed already. Like, this, immediately
you've given up, because then you just, it's kind of like you reach this, like, dead end where you're like, no, I already know that. The best way is this, the best way is that. But it's like, how many times do we see, like, even bigger breeders be like, oh, I kind of slowly transitioned into doing it this way. And, like, even Billy's brought up, like, he's going to be breeding his snakes a little bit differently this year to try something new, like,
like what he was talking about with his hatchlings that he kept in only ambient with no belly heat at all.
That was amazing.
That's amazing. That's a hell of a thing. Because what my immediate thought on that, man, was like, what a guy to champion that test for all of us, right?
Exactly.
Because he didn't test that. He didn't test that for himself. Yeah, Bod, I'm just drinking water, man. I'm what's today? I'm 13 days in on dry January still going strong.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, despite as much freaking stress as I've had this month
Oh
and as
God.
many days as I've wanted to come home and have a beer, I'm
Yeah.
still going strong with it. But yeah, like, because he first of all, he didn't have to try that,
Yeah.
but in his mind, that's how Billy is. He's like, okay, well, I hear about people doing this. Let me just test it, and he didn't just do that again just for himself. Because he's like, hey guys, this is what worked. Like, here's the information. I tried it and everything was great and it was no problem. And he also didn't say, like, this is the only way to do it. This is the only way that I'm going to do it going forward. He was just like, hey, little experiment that I tried with. Oh,
Yep.
by the way, I only tried it with 250 babies.
Exactly. That's what.
So, like, had that experiment failed, yeah,
dude, when I
had
heard
that
the
experiment
number,
failed, you're risking a lot.
that's a lot, man. And his babies, these aren't like,
No.
we tried 100 pastels, 50 spiders. Like, imagine which babies were in those racks. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big experiment. And what a huge, like someone like that, where they're taking a risk like that to better our information, that like that's why, like, I like supporting people like that, because he's
Yep.
just really, he is an OG, he's a pioneer, like in terms of trying stuff out like that, because we don't know.
And the other side of it too, man, is that, once again, really freaking smart businessman. Like, he's a very business savvy person.
Yep.
I knew that he had like some previous businesses and stuff, but until he was on with, who was he on with? I don't remember. He did a live with somebody not that long ago. Anyways, I think it was Antoine's, when he was talking about how many other businesses he's had from. Because, like I said, I knew about the networking thing, like with where he did like the security systems and the wiring and all that stuff. I knew about that, but I had no idea about, like, dude, he owned a gym at one point. He owned a moving business at one point. He owned, like, he's done freaking everything. And every business he's ever built was obviously very successful. It was, and he took a piece of that information, that piece of that knowledge from every single one.
Exactly.
And that's now why he's successful at the level that he is. It's not just he can put two snakes together and he can have them make babies. It's all the other stuff that goes with that. Yeah. And that's, again, is what excites me, is just, again, to see people that are successful in life. It translates,
Absolutely.
And I just think that's freaking cool.
Yeah, experience, and that's why it's like I've always tried to keep an open mind in life, and just take on as many experiences as you can. Listen to what people have to say, even if it sounds weird at first. It's just nice to chat with people and, like, listen to their experience, because experience is everything, man. Like,
yeah,
that's what's
for
all
sure.
about.
So we'll transition just because it seems relevant. So what's your day job? What do you do day to day, Sal?
So, what I used to do, for the last, up until 2 years ago, I was a shop manager and piercer at a tattoo shop, actually, for 10 years. So that was kind of like my main thing that I've been doing for a long time. It was awesome. Like, I learned a lot. It's actually funny, because on Billy's last video, with Brian Gundy, when he was talking about the tattoo shop and how he hated when his artists were coming in late, and, like, he'd have to call people and give them that bad news, and it was terrible. Like, I couldn't be on his side more. Like, I had to do that so many times, and it was so harsh. It was, like, the hardest thing to do, because these people are waiting for, like, 6 months to get a tattoo, and then you'll get a call from the artist early in the morning or whatever, and they'd be like, dude, I'm not coming in today, can you call them? And like, either getting yelled at, or you just feel terrible for the person, because they're like, man, I've been waiting for 6 months. Like, what the hell? Like,
and there's a lot of emotion involved, I think. I mean, not every tattoo, but for a lot of tattoos, there should be, at least for most.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And
it's a big commitment financially and emotionally. Yeah,
absolutely, man. And, like, we had a pretty good rule at the shop. Like, no one ever lost deposits or anything like that. It was never like that. We tried to get them in, but it was still like, I mean, you wait 6 months or something, you take the day off work, so you're losing out on money already. And have to give that news. But it was great. Like, piercing was awesome. I had my days just like everyone else at any other job, where it can become frustrating, but
it's still a job at the end of the day.
Exactly.
But it's definitely a fun environment, I'm sure. I mean, that's how I felt about the bar business, man. There was days where I'm just like, this is my job, and I kind of don't want to fucking be here doing this,
Exactly.
But there were other days where, like, you're super busy, or you're just like there's 1,000 things going on, and you
Yep.
just like take a deep breath and you kind of like realize and just smile to yourself like, I get paid to do this.
Yeah, like this
Like
is
this,
pretty sick.
like right, like this is amazing, you
Yeah,
know. Like so, no,
for
yeah,
sure.
I'm sure it's that way too.
Oh,
So
for
you're
sure.
transitioning out of that though.
Yeah, so like after that, I really, and it was great because like I kept thinking in my head, I was like, man, I really want to work with animals, you know, like as much as I took like and I don't know if it worked the same with you, but I took a huge like pay cut, unfortunately, because of
Yep.
it. Because I mean, there's obviously way more money in piercing and managing than
Sure.
there is in for what I was getting into. So it's actually funny because I brought up Biopod before, but I had an interview to go into work in Biopod in Calgary here.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so they have one place in Calgary that was like their main. So they're from Calgary.
Yeah.
So I had an interview and it went really well. Everything was awesome. So I was like, dude, this is sick. Like I'm going to be working at Biopod and like helping it was customer service. So like just contacting people across the globe,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Really big in Europe, I guess it was. But
That makes sense.
yeah, then unfortunately,
Same thing with saltwater.
yeah,
They're like the pioneers of that stuff, man.
yep.
And then it spills over here. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I was looking forward to it, but unfortunately they went under in like a month after. So I was glad that they didn't take me on. I was confused.
Sure.
I was like, why are you interviewing if you're that close to the brink? But so I ended up getting I was lucky though. I ended up getting a manager position in the reptile section of one of our pet stores here in Calgary.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I've
That's
been
good
working
though,
there
man.
for the last 2 years, and then now thanks to COVID, I'm homeschooling my daughter now. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but you know what? That was awesome experience. The pet industry in terms of like pet stores is really harsh. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to work there.
Mm-hmm.
I loved talking to people and trying to influence people away from like the pet way, the pet store way of taking care of reptiles. So introducing like, even though it kind of hurt me in the end because like I'm trying to push Cornell's World stuff onto people. Like, yeah, you could get this tank, or you could go to Cornell's World and get this enclosure. You know.
Yeah.
So trying to steer people in the right direction and giving them good information was awesome. But then it was a battle against, you know, getting told by, you know, like the head honchos, like, you know, this is the way we have to do stuff. These are the pamphlets you give out, you know, telling people to put heat lamps for ball pythons and other species that aren't benefiting from it just so they can keep selling bulbs over and over again.
Yeah.
You know, and it took them my second year for them just to get thermostats there after we were pushing for them to buy thermostats so we could sell thermostats there.
See, and that Billy mentioned that on his last stream too. I was just catching up on it this morning. Yeah. And he was talking about it. He's like, why don't they sell these things? And I think he was probably right. Like it probably comes down to a couple of different things. Like the markup's not as good on those. And then on top of that, it's like, if they spend $150 on a thermostat or $100 on a thermostat, that's $100 out of the budget for, again, the stuff where the markup is the highest. You know,
yes, exactly.
The hides that cost them 25 cents to get shipped in from China that they charge you $25 for.
Yep. It's seriously, man. And that was another thing. It was like the degrading amount of stuff that would end up coming in. And like, they were pretty good initially at getting like brand stuff,
Sure.
You know, like Zoom Ed and that kind of stuff. But then it slowly started going towards more kind of China branding, like even cheaper. So it just got to a point where I was like, man, this is just brutal. And like,
stuff ordered off like Alibaba.
Yeah. Oh, straight
or
up,
AliExpress.
Like,
yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not kidding about that, by the way.
No,
for anybody that doesn't know, like if you go on Amazon and look at like a lot of the reptile hides and stuff, a lot of that stuff comes off Alibaba and AliExpress. It's all like
legit where they were getting some of the, especially some of the fish stuff, like a lot of the ornaments and stuff straight from Alibaba, like no word of a lie. And it's a pretty big store, like within Canada anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it started getting really bad. And like the worst is like people coming in for a lamp that they just purchased a week ago, and they come in 3 or 4 times in a row because it's breaking down or the ballast in their lamp is going or whatever. You know, and it's just sad to watch someone spend $200, and I get to that point where I'm just basically like, dude, like don't worry about getting the lamp. Go here, go to this website, check this out, because like the animal's suffering while I'm trying to sell you something. You know, it's just not right. So it was hard. It was great to work there. I got lots of good experience, but it's tough, man. Working in any sort of pet store,
Yeah.
Especially as like a manager, it's really tough.
Yeah, because like we have a local reptile shop that I'm super thankful to have, like because a lot of cities, a lot of places do not have access to that stuff. You know, like when I need ReptiChip, if I don't have it already from, you know, like I kind of backstock a couple of blocks here, but if I
Yeah.
run out, I just run up the street and it's, you know, I might pay like $3 or $4 more for it or whatever, but like whatever, you know, I know where the money's going. You know, the owner is
Yep.
like in the building, you know, on site, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's great. Like I needed a thermostat for my incubator, ran up the street and bought one, like, you know, and it was no big deal. But but downside is, you know, same thing. Like every time I'm in there, you know, like at the end of the day, I understand like they've got bills to pay, you know, and
Yep.
so they do better than like a Petco or a PetSmart, but they at the end of the day, they are still there to sell somebody the stuff that's going to pay their bills, you know, and
Yeah.
it's I know I did it the other day. They were selling this lady on like some like Zoomed or some brand cleaner, like spray cleaner disinfectant. And which is fine, like
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
If that's all they sold, I probably wouldn't have even said anything.
yeah.
But literally, I'm standing at the counter waiting to pay for my live rats that they brought out for me. And I'm standing right behind her and he's like talking to her about, oh yeah, this cleaner, blah, blah, this is what you need. On the counter, right next to him, is a bottle of F10 SC.
Like
And I'm
what?
like, you sell this? Why? Like, and I think for him, it probably was just ignorance. He probably didn't even know what it was or anything.
Oh
I
man.
was like, hey man, I was like, actually, so I grabbed it. I was like, hey, I was like, here, buy this. I was like, this is probably more disinfectant in this one little bottle than you'll need for the next 5 years. I was like, I have one bottle at my house. It's like, I have 30 something snakes. I was like, I've had that one bottle for like over a year. And it was the same price because he was going
Oh
to
my
sell her one spray bottle for like almost $30 or something like that
Oh
for this little disinfectant cleaner. And I'm like, that's one bottle that you're gonna have to come back and buy again in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
yeah, yeah.
So that was just a perfect example, but it was really, I felt very awkward because once I like suggested it to her, then here comes the owner like bringing me my rats. And he's like, oh, you're getting the F10. Like, you know, like in other words, like you're buying the product that I make like a nickel in markup off of,
Yeah,
you know. And he was like,
that's
oh, he's like, I think that's actually our last bottle too. Because guess what? That's what they use there. That's what they use for all their freaking reptiles they keep. But you're going to sell them the Zoomed thing because it makes you more money. That's
exactly.
why I would be a terrible business owner because
Well, dude,
I could never own a retail spot like that because I
it's
wouldn't be able to do it.
it's tough, man. Like I do, and like you said, like I understand that too. I get
Yeah,
it.
chlorhexidine, exactly. $20 a gallon, right?
Yeah, no, and it's and I get that aspect. Like I do understand that you do have to make money. You know, it's even hard to talk on the subject because it's that
Yeah.
balance of like someone making ends meet and like trying to do, you know, trying to keep that reptile business open and having that type of spot other than like a Petco or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, one of those
Yeah,
places.
because and that's it, man. You're right. Because I want that place to thrive. I want it to be there
Exactly.
forever. I
Exactly.
really do. I want them to be the go-to place in Charlotte for stuff like that. But then and then also like, you know, you're in there and I'm looking at I'm looking at all these reptiles and I'm like, I know a guy that breeds those and those are like half that price. You know, like,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
I
yeah.
would never
I know.
never undercut them on a sale of an animal or anything like that. And in fact that they may end up being the outlet for some of my ball pythons at some
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
If I, you know,
That's
if I
better.
produce some normals or something, I mean that might be,
Absolutely.
you know, where they end up. But yeah, it's just yeah,
It's
I
so
don't know,
true,
man.
man. And it is. And like we have a couple of you know, I think there's two kind of reptile exclusive stores as well in Calgary, and you know
Mhm.
it's similar. Like I would never want to see them close down or anything.
Right.
But you know, it's hard when you're more into the hobby, like when you're really into it. It is hard to shop there because you know that the deals we can get, not deals, but you know,
You're just more aware, yeah, of
yeah,
just what
yeah,
of what actual market pricing is versus
exactly,
again just that retail. But that's just what it is. You know, it's
absolutely,
retail markup because you have to pay for the convenience
yes,
of coming here and you know and us even existing, let alone you
yeah,
know anything else.
exactly.
So I understand, and that's why I say like that thermostat that I bought. Like I know I probably paid $30 more than what I could have got it for you know somewhere else. But once again, I was sure as hell happy that they were there and they had it
That
the day that I needed it.
Yep, that's
So
exactly when you're in that tough position.
yeah.
You know, it helps, and you know, especially for like things like you know, if you have a bearded dragon and you need those weekly worms or crickets,
Yeah,
it's nice
yeah,
having
stuff like
a
that's
big number,
great, and I'm happy to pay whatever they ask for them. Sure. Kind of piggybacking off that, I'm just curious because I've thought about this a lot, in terms of like selling my snakes and stuff like that. Because I haven't reached that point yet. I will have snakes for sale. They're everybody's eating, everybody's on frozen thawed, they're all
Nice.
putting on weight. Like I've
Yes.
actually, two of them are up to like almost 150 grams already. Like
Nice.
they're getting chubby.
That's awesome.
So I mean they should be listed soon. But like what is your have you produced and sold anything yet? So I'm sorry, I
No, it's
might
all
have
good.
jumped
I
ahead on
have
you. Yeah.
not in terms of ball pythons. Like I said,
Okay.
those 3 litters of boa
Yeah,
were
just
kind of my
boas. Yep.
experience in terms of selling. So I haven't had any ball pythons yet. So yeah, I haven't had any experience quite yet in terms
Yeah.
of selling myself.
So where I was going with that was I think about it all the time. Like, what am I going to do the day that somebody's asking me? Because it's going to happen, and it already kind of has. Like, what am I going to suggest to people when they ask me how they should keep their new baby ball python? You know, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh
just to
yeah,
keep one. Like,
solid
am I going
question.
to tell them like, hey, because like Vivarium Electronics here, they sell a single
Yeah,
tub, which I
right.
think would be great. But then, like, again, for those kids that want to be able to, see it and interact, which I appreciate, right? Like, if I was going to have
Absolutely.
one snake, I think that's the reality. I would probably want to keep it that way.
Oh
I'd
yeah,
probably keep it in like a small PVC. I was
yeah.
just curious, like, if you thought through the way that you would answer that question?
Yeah, I think I would take a similar route. Like I would be asking, my question back to them would be like, what kind of setup are you looking like? Are you looking to be able to actually view the animal constantly?
Yeah.
Another thing I would bring up is that, and it sucks because where that part comes in where it's like it kind of hurts your sale, but it's like, are you wanting an animal that's going to be out all the time that you're going to be able
Yeah.
to interact with? Because
Yeah.
ball python is really, I mean, it might not be
Probably
the
not the one.
pet,
Yeah.
unfortunately, if
Yeah.
that's what you're looking for. But
And you
I,
get some of them do, some of them do,
yeah,
because like I have one.
absolutely.
She's a female normal, and she's at the front of her tub right now.
Yeah.
All she ever wants to do is freaking cruise around the damn room. I mean, I could let her
Yes.
out and she'd be all over the place.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
most of them
Most of the time, yeah.
are not that way.
I hear
Yeah.
you though. Like I have we have a pet pied, little pet pied female here for my daughter, and she's in a little PVC enclosure, but she's always cruising, man. Like she's always out of her, she generally stays in her hide, but she comes out too to check things out, and but yeah, I think a lot of it would definitely come to what they're planning on doing. Like if they're more comfortable in just taking it out all the time rather than
Yeah.
watching it. I would say Vivarium Electronics would be a great go-to for sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would suggest a very small PVC enclosure. And even I don't know if it would work, but I've thought about even if they tint, and I don't know if they've done this at all, I'm not sure, but if they tinted the inside glass with like a 2-way, I think someone
That'd
bought
be
it for
cool.
one of
Yeah.
Brian Barczyk's lives once.
Yeah.
If you tinted the window on the inside so they can't see out. But then
Yeah.
again, I don't know if that would really help with snakes anyways. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not
But
sure
yeah,
the way their eyes work around and all that. Yeah, I have no
yeah, I
idea.
don't
I
know
never
if
thought
his
about it.
signature would be able to go through there anyway, so it wouldn't
Mhm.
matter at the end of the day. But see, is that the girl that cruises?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, she just, yeah, like literally, and she's just, I don't know. She's been this way since we've had her, and this is actually the first ball python I got when we got back into them.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
My ex picked this girl, and she was almost full grown when we got her,
Yeah,
and but yeah, she was just like a pet initially, and like literally, like all she ever wants to do, she just wants to like hang out, and
cruising.
it's weird, man. I don't have any other ball pythons that like to come out, but literally I can look over at her cage and I can see her at the front of the tub, and it's not because she wants to eat. She's just like,
I just
hey,
want to.
what's going on?
Yeah.
I kind of want to come out and like do stuff. Yeah, she's just weird.
But yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Actually, I think that's a really important question because a lot of the time when we do sell these animals, it is someone just looking for a pet. So
yeah,
I think that that little vivarium, because I've seen the 2 compartment ones, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Calgary, like I know Cornell sells them.
Yeah.
And then like I said, the next step up would just be a PVC enclosure, and just have multiple hides on each end.
Like and because you can even like, so what I've seen, and I really liked this. I think it was when Barczyk went to Wilbank's facility. he has a retail area, which I thought it was
Oh,
really
cool.
freaking cool. Jeremy, if you haven't seen this, Jeremy Cure, because you were talking about the PVC stuff, and Dylan, same thing. He has a little retail area that has I think they are animal plastics enclosures, and they call them like ball boxes. That might not be his that are called ball boxes, but somebody sells a PVC enclosure that they call a ball box.
Yeah.
And it's just a small PVC enclosure that's just like real simple and has heat tape. He includes the thermostat and everything. And I remember at Wilbanks had him set up on his table at the Arlington ARBC, and it has the cage and everything's inside. It's got the bedding. It's got like one pack of like his brand of coconut or something like that.
Yeah.
It's got a thermostat. It's got the heat tape. It's everything. So literally he'll sell you the snake, and then he just sells you this box. You go home and plug it all in.
That's amazing.
And I just thought that was freaking great.
That's amazing.
And so I think that's probably like something that I would probably lean towards, is like, I would probably just, I haven't thought that far ahead or reached that point where I need to, but
same
I
here,
think
man.
I would probably find somebody that sells a kit like that, that's
Yes.
like ready to ship, and I would say, hey, buy this, and then, let me know when you get it, and then, I'll deliver the snake or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I feel like for again, like if I reach that point, or when I reach that point where I've got like local sales, for kids, for pets and stuff like that, that's probably what I would think that's what most people are going to want. But yeah, that's true too, to just kind of ask them kind of what their expectation is with what they're getting.
Yeah.
And I think obviously you do that anyways, but
yeah, for sure. But that's it's a good question to bring up, because I don't think a lot of people really think about that aspect, because of course we're breeders. So in our head, we're like, oh, when we pick up a new snake, it's no problem. We'll just throw it in the
right.
basket,
Yeah. We don't
right?
even think about it. And that's why I say, like, I had never thought about it until I had a friend ask me, like, hey, like, I'm going to get a snake. Like, what do I need to keep him in? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, you should just go ahead and buy a V6 stack of, like, because if you're getting one, I mean, if you're like me, you're going to want 12 of them in a week, or whatever, but
Totally, man.
But obviously, like, again, it's strange in my head, but like there really are just people that just want one of these things, I guess.
I'm like, even then I'm like, no, you're gonna, dude.
Right. I'm like, you trust me, just build your infrastructure now. Like, do you have like, if you got like $2,000 kicking around, you could probably just buy a freedom breeder and we'll just slowly fill that thing.
Just save your time, man, because by the time you're done that setup, you could have got a 6-bin at least. And it's so true though, man. Like and it's hard. Like I just feel like most people, like if you're into reptiles, you have that, I don't know, you have that connection where it's easy for you to keep going with them, because they are amazing. And once you get to that point where you're like, yeah, I really want a snake, and you get to interact like you are doing right now, like that's the nice thing about them. And luckily with
she has literally rubbed a freaking bump on her nose from being at the front of that cage for so much. I guess I need to get her out more often. She's a trip, man. I've never seen a ball python that had a face rub before.
Like wants to come out so bad. That's so funny.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. Maybe she might be looking to breed. I have no idea, because like she's off food right now, so it's probably that. It's probably that. She's like, I know there's some dudes around here somewhere.
I know it. Just let me know.
I smell them.
Oh my god, dude. That's so funny.
But yeah, she's just my big normal. And like I did pair her once, because I was considering making like my own, like, some hets or whatever of Ultramels, but I was like, I don't really know if I want to try to sell those, like if I get males, I'm going to end up selling them probably as pets. And I kind of backed off on it. But I figured, like, do you have a normal female that you kind of keep on hand in your collection, or?
I don't right now. In my initial collection, I definitely did.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of single gene females. Like I have quite a few single gene females. Just to keep it simple. If there's anything I want to just kind of branch out on, at least I can get. I don't have to mix 5 to 5 gene combos or anything like that. I can just do a nice powerhouse to a Mojave or whatever. So and that was kind of my focus this year. I didn't really get any like massively powerhoused animals. I stuck to a lot of older, quote unquote, older genes. Nothing crazy. But I think a lot of that is me still kind of being stuck in the early 2010 era of ball pythons, where I wanted to get a lot of stuff I couldn't get back then because it was just too expensive.
Well, and then on top of that, I was going to say there still is the finance part involved. You know, I mean, most of what I have in my racks, man, is simple stuff. Like I have a pastel calico, I have a pastel orange ghost, which that's a recessive, but it's an inexpensive, very simple combo recessive that's real pretty. What else do I have in there? I have a pastel yellow belly. Like I said, I have a ton of freaking pastel, and that's just because, it's mostly because people sell them inexpensively. Like the pastel yellow belly I got because I wanted some yellow belly, and I was like, all right, pastel comes with it, sure.
Yeah. I have the same.
I have a single gene leopard, and like, at least for me, my initial thought was because I wanted to make my own heads. So I was like, okay, let me find like the nicest leopard at this show that I just really like, that's super dark, and I'll make my own leopard head ultramels. That was my initial thought. Now I'm like, somebody's already made it. Like, I can just spend a few $100 more and just buy it and save myself 3 years. Like, that makes a lot more sense, but initially, so like, it's funny how things kind of change, but so obviously with you having like some more simple combo females and stuff, tell me what do you have as far as males? I think both of the animals that I used for my thumbnail were your 2 males, right?
Yeah, both of those were.
Do you have more males than that, or just the 2?
Yes. So I have. Okay. So the ones in the thumbnail, the smaller one, is an Orange Dream, Enchi Cinnamon, Vanilla Fire.
Okay.
He is probably about maybe 250 grams or so. So he's getting up there. He's starting to put on some weight, which is nice. The other one was a Banana Mojave Pied.
Okay.
And then I have so the Banana Mojave Pied is currently in rotation.
I love that snake, man.
Dude, it's like
he's beautiful.
That tab.
Yeah.
Every time
there's just something about that color combo, because I've got a Mojave Ultramel, and the colors they're similar.
Yes. Yes.
And there's something about that tone. I don't know. It's just neat. It's almost got like a pinkish tone to it in certain light. Like, I don't know.
It's incredible, man. And the head is the Mojave Pied head is so cool. And then once you mix banana into it, it's just this really light purple, lavender, pinky. It's hard to explain. When I saw it in person, it looked way different. So when I saw it on the picture, I was like, oh, this is sick. And I got it in person, I was like, holy man, look at the head.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, even in the photo, you can tell there's a gradient of color. That like his color is not the same from nose to tail. It's a crazy grade. His head's totally different. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And the yellow as you go further down, the yellow is super bright. He's an amazing snake. This is his first year breeding, but he's in rotation. He's had locks and stuff, so hopefully we can make some more Mojave Pieds and stuff like that. And then I have a Fire Clown male, which one of my favorite pairings this year was the Fire Clown male to the Pastel Calico female. And I believe I'm not 100% because I'm actually not very good at palpating, unfortunately. But I do believe she had her pre-lay shed on Friday. So hopefully she'll be producing some eggs here pretty quick. Yeah. So the Fire Clown, and then I have a Firefly Calico Leopard male. Really like that guy. Leopard is so sick, dude. I just love.
I love leopards.
Man, they are just absolutely insane. And then I have a Yellow Belly Pied male who's also in rotation.
And that's another combo I love, man. Again, just super simple combo.
Yeah, really, really nice. I really like how dark the blacks are on Yellow Belly Pieds. They're just really, really nice. And who else do I have? And then one of the newer pickups was my Pewter Desert Ghost male.
Okay, yeah, nice.
That guy's insane, man. Like, Desert Ghost is just incredible.
I feel like I might have seen the picture, because I'm assuming obviously you've posted a picture of that to IG.
Yeah. He's on my Instagram somewhere. But he's just incredible, man. When I saw him in person, I was like, dude, Desert Ghost is just like, it's incredible. Like, comparing, because Pewter's Cinnamon has always kind of been one of my favorites. But Pewter Desert Ghost is like a whole nother level compared to Pewter. Like, it's just incredible. Absolutely.
I'll have to go look around and find the picture of that, because I'd like to see it. I'm just trying to even like picture it in my head, and I can't really You know what I mean? I'm sure what
Yeah.
I'm picturing it doesn't do it justice.
Oh, it's incredible, man. Is that the
Yeah,
leopard?
this is my big single gene leopard girl. She's
Dude, that
just
thing is dark.
yeah. Like I said,
Holy.
when I saw her as a baby, she was just super super dark. She just shed
Wow,
literally
man.
like today, but she's
That
so dark
that's a
for just
really
a
nice
single gene.
leopard. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be mad at that, man. Like, I mean, even just making the leopard hets out of that, they're gonna be incredible. And people are still looking for that for sure. Like, that's not a, you know.
Yeah, because for me, I second guessed it a little bit. But I was planning on pairing her. I think what I'm going to end up doing is I may it's hard for me to say. I may go for like long odds and do pos sets with her. Like, so take that clown male that I've got coming in
Oh, man.
and just do, you know, and just shoot for like pastel leopard, het
Yeah.
clown, pos het ultra male. You know, and just like
That'd be-
save all the females back and just see
Yeah.
what happens, you know. And I don't think anybody would complain about having a male from that either. Like, you know,
No, definitely not.
again, het clown males, and then if you had a pos het ultra male, like if you just had a single gene ultra male in your rack to throw him to just to see if he proves out, like that'd be huge.
Oh yeah.
So I think that'd be a great pairing. But yeah, she is, man. She's one of my favorite snakes. And again, this was one of like the first animals I got. I got her at an expo. I think I paid $75 for her. Like,
oh man, that's
you know what I
awesome,
mean?
dude.
Yeah,
That is
like,
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love leopards, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, that's such a nice example of a leopard. So there's having a female like that in your racks, like even as you progress and through the years, man. I mean, like,
I'll be happy to have her forever.
Absolutely, man. And
she's
just
a great eater,
especially,
and
as things get crazier with you, like, you know, eventually if you do hit like a double recessive, putting a double recessive back to her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's why, you know, I've been like here just lately, like, cause you know, like, especially for me, I overthink all the time. Like, I'm like, like I have all this stuff that I don't really know what to do with yet, you know? And like, she's one of those. I'm like, man, I don't really have a need for this animal, you know, but like, if I sold her, like what am I'm not gonna get very much money for her, first of all.
No.
And second of all, I've already put in all the money. I've already
Yeah.
fed her for 3 years and raised her up and housed her and everything else. Like I wouldn't even get half of that back,
No.
let alone the time and everything else. And so yeah, I think I have the issue of just like getting impatient with where I'm at right now, you know.
Yeah. No, and it's hard not to, though, to be honest. Like, I mean, especially when you're raising females from a young age, you know, raising males is one thing, but females from a young age to breeding point, like it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how hard it is. And I can actually, because I unfortunately had to go through that the first time I sold off my initial collection, which was almost.
And I want to ask you about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and that was difficult, man. You know, that was back in 2014. That's why I was confusing my numbers a little bit there, but
yeah, no, you're good, brother.
But yeah, you know, once you get them to that size, it's, like you said, it's hard giving them up in general, and then thinking about the money that you lose out on and all that work you put in. It's tough, man.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you, just real quick. So Kayla, you said leopard Mojave Ultramels. So this girl did not go for me this year. She reabsorbed, but she's a pastel leopard het Ultramel. And she was paired to my Mojave Ultramel. She came from Justin Kabilka.
Oh,
so
dude.
I unfortunately had a shot at making you know, leopard Mojave Ultramels with pastel layered on top, and I think I just stopped pairing her too early, and so she reabsorbed. I thought she was ready to go, and then it just never happened. So
oh man.
But yeah, so let's dive in real quick to kind of what happened. So you had a collection previously, and what was that? What did that collection look like? I mean, numbers wise, and just kind of what you had going on.
So basically, it's hard remembering all the years and stuff, but I had.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to hold you to any of that.
Investigation work. You're like, wait a second. Back in 2000.
Right. Yeah. Like this. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, so I started off my collection. I had mostly started purchasing hatchlings, because at the time, finding anything over even 500 to 800 grams, you're either going to pay a lot back then, or it's just hard to find in general. So, so I started buying off hatchlings, basically, started growing them up. Most of the females I had purchased were around 150, maybe 200 grams, if that. So I had started raising them up, and then the first year I had most of them up to about 1,400, 1,500 grams, which is about the third year I had them. She had a ledge.
I just had to show that because she's literally in like full on hunting mode. Like I've never caught her doing that before. Like it was just funny.
Dude,
Like
that is
fully
so
poised.
awesome.
Like I swear if I open that door right now, she's gonna hammer me.
She is ready to go.
Sorry. Like I said, it was just one of those things. I just happened to look back. I was like, I got to show this really quick.
Dude, don't apologize.
Sorry.
That's me.
Sorry.
I'm like tempted just to stare at her for a bit.
I'm telling you, she has that effect, man. She's a gorgeous animal. I absolutely love it. That is my favorite snake for sure.
No doubt, man. Seriously.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, dude. Don't say sorry. It's all good, man. So I had purchased them all as hatchlings. I raised them up. I got to this about the third year or so, and I'd started pairing. I was fortunate enough to get one clutch. However, that clutch went bad in the incubator. It was devastating to me. But I was still, still going. And at that time, unfortunately I went through a divorce. I had just had my first kid, and I went through a divorce. So because of all that, it's not like I had a bad taste for it, but I wasn't in the right.
Life happens, man. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of because I mean, even for me, like I'm single right now and everything else, but like it's a lot to do. Work a full day, even without added stress of like having a kid and going through a divorce and the whole nine.
Yes,
it's a lot to come home and want to clean 15 to 20 snakes, depending on who all's dirty, and wash 17 to 20 water dishes and the whole nine. It's a lot.
It was too much, and like at that time I was working like 6 days a week at the tattoo shop. I was a manager, so I couldn't take days. It was hard to take days off.
Yeah. Everything centers around you. Yep.
And so it was just too much. So I ended up selling off all those females that I spent 3 years, raising from hatchlings and stuff, and just getting them to that point where they were building follicles. My first clutch, like everything was going great, and I had to let them go. And it's brutal, man. The thought, it literally, it kept me from getting it back into it all these years, because every time I wanted to, I kept having that like, oh man, that was so shitty, like having
almost like a PTSD, just like a flashback of how brutal it was to live through that and then start over
fresh again. And that's why and some people look down on it. Most people don't care, but like some people would, you see all those memes of like, y'all have any of them breeders ready or whatever, and it's like, I tried to buy into breeders this year because I wanted to get back to where I was. So I wanted to, instead of raising again.
And there's nothing wrong with that, man.
But
there's nothing wrong with that. Again, as much as those memes are funny and all that, like, I think that's mostly targeted at the people that just are not even aware of what they're asking for and have never been in the hobby, and they're the people that think they're going to come in and make $1 million overnight or whatever. That's mostly what that kind of negativity is targeted at. But yeah, I mean, dude, if somebody was selling breeder size females right now, like hell, I had somebody reach out to me and they wanted to give me a breeder size normal head albino female, and even that I was like, I should probably take that. I don't have any albino in my collection at all, to be clear.
But like,
so I have literally zero use for that female. But in my brain where I'm at right now, I'm like, I mean, that's a 4-year-old female. Like, I'll figure something out.
Exactly, man. That's exactly.
So no, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. So you started looking around for breeder size animals.
Yeah. So I was starting to look around, and I had met people back in the day when I was into it before, and I came in contact with them again. And luckily one of my friends here that's local to me, she was upgrading a lot of her stuff. Like she has a bunch of females that were moving up on bin size. And they have a couple more genes on these other females. So she had given me pretty much a spreadsheet of all these different, single gene or 3-4 gene animals. And I lucked out on some of them. Some of them do have 3 or 4 gene females, and they're of size.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and luckily because I knew her, I wasn't too worried about like, oh, are you selling me all the worst feeders, or like
you're like retired girls that have given you 10 clutches already or whatever,
exactly. Or like girls who slug out year after year, like stuff like that. And so hopefully everything works out good, but So far, so good. But yeah, that was the whole aspect of me getting back into it. I wanted to kind of start off where I left off instead of getting nothing but hatchlings and doing that.
And it's tough. It's really hard, man. And I think it's hard for me every day, even being where I'm at with things, because I'm just like, man, like everything I want to make is like 5 to 6 to 7 years out.
Yeah.
And that, like, I'm gonna be 40. But by the time I'm making the stuff that I'm really excited about, but it's just like, it's the game, man. Like, unless you got a ton of money to come in and buy up a bunch of stuff, or you just get lucky, that, the right person that's maybe getting out or something like that. I mean, it just takes freaking time, man. Time and work and consistency, and you just keep moving. And it's a frustrating hobby because you see all the stuff that everybody else is doing. And so it's hard not to compare what you've got going on, to what other people are working on.
It's tough, man. That's I gotta say that's one of the hardest things, and especially coming back into it, because like before it was like if you had a 3 or 4 gene animal that was a female, you're like, oh damn, yeah, that's sick, like that's awesome. But now it's like I look at some of the stuff being produced on YouTube, and it's hard, man, because you're like, holy crap, dude, I'm not gonna be there. By the time I get there, you're gonna be into like a 6 gene recessive animal by the time I'm hitting 3, but at the same time, it's no matter what your clutch is, when those healthy babies come out, man, you're proud of it regardless. So it's, it's hard to take away from that. And that's what got me, like those first litters I had, those boas weren't anything special, but to me they were, because it was something that, I didn't create obviously, but like it's something that
but it was something you are kind of responsible for. And then on top of that, it's this tiny little life that didn't exist prior to something that was a direct result of something that you did.
Yes, exactly.
And then you kept it alive and got it to eat and the whole nine. Like, trust me. Because again, like that clutch that I have, man, it's not anything mind blowing, a Mojave Ultramel to a trick, like to a single gene trick female, you know what I mean?
But it's still sick, though.
But it's still amazing, because I also, like, there's not on Morph Market. There haven't been any on Morph Market in a few years. So like I don't even know what to ask for those babies, because I've literally got nothing to go on.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly it. Like a single gene animal. That's why I'm always like, a single gene animal is still important, because look at that. You don't even know what to price them at, because they're not made that often. Like, I mean, it's still hard to find those.
Yeah. And so like, but now having those again, being my first clutch, like all of them hatched, all of them were healthy, none of them had any issues except one that didn't want to eat. And I was like in full panic, not panic mode, but I was just like, I remember it was the first time I even tried to offer them food. Right.
Yeah.
And like 5 of them didn't eat. And I felt so defeated, man. I was like, I was so down on myself, because it was just like, I think I had like other things going on too that were just stressing me out.
Yeah.
And that was just like my one little highlight was these babies, and then I'm like, what, like I can't, I just can't get anything right, like just sucks. But that moment made it that much better when, like by the 3rd time I was offering them food, like now 3 of them are eating. And then like the 4th time I'm like, oh, I got that one to go now. That one's eating this week, or just like whatever. And then man, like I had that one baby that was 59 grams. It was tiny, tiny, tiny. And it was not dropping any weight. I mean, it was about, I think it was like 62 grams when it hatched or something like that. Right. It had dropped down to 59 grams was the smallest it got. So I'm like, okay, 3 grams of weight. Is not anything to where I'm going to start stressing. Yeah. So I'm still, I never even had to offer it live. That was like the next step. But finally I was like, like maybe the rat's too cold, because it was interested, I'm like, it's interested. It's definitely like up at the front of the tub. So dude, I ran like 120 degree water over this tiny little pinky, like from the faucet straight to the snake immediately.
Man,
took it right away. It just wanted it to be hotter.
Yeah.
And literally it was like 1 a.m, and I'm in my snake room just jumping up and down like, yes, like quietly, because I'm like, please don't drop the rat, like please just take it and pretend I'm not here. But
oh man,
but those are the moments, man, and so again, like just that I can't put a number on that, you know, like
No,
that's invaluable. It doesn't have to be like a $5,000 animal that I
no,
made for me
absolutely.
to have that feeling, man. And then the idea of that, like, I can pass that on to somebody else, you
Yeah.
know, like that's just,
And just
yeah.
like someone, someone who really like, and you've had like tons of compliments on those snakes alone, and it's like even something
Yeah.
that
I mean,
doesn't seem so significant to us, someone else is
yeah.
like, dude, I've been waiting to find this forever, and I finally
Yeah.
found, like, especially a snake
And
that you can't find much
that's
on
the other
North
part.
Market, like,
Yeah.
you
That's the
said
other part. Cause yeah, do you
it's
know I haven't posted any pictures of those babies on Instagram?
yeah, I know. I've noticed.
It
I'm like, what
wasn't
do you?
it wasn't like so originally it was because I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna make a YouTube video about them, so like I want that to kind of be like the first place people see them, and then I just literally forgot to even do it, and I literally, I'm not kidding, Sal, I was thinking about it last night. I was like, man, like I've been really lax on my Instagram game lately, like as far as posting pictures. I was like, I need to start taking some pictures. I was like, I don't have pictures of these freaking babies on there.
No.
Like, what is wrong with me?
I know. Get on that, man.
But my point of that is that even though I haven't even really done anything with them, like I've got people that are asking me to buy them and stuff, like
Yeah,
that, and that's super again, just that another kind of moment of that validation, and it's just really really exciting.
absolutely.
Um, how many snakes do you have paired up right now for this season?
Uh, Hold on. I'll check my. I think I have. Let's see if.
I know you told me a few of the pairings, but I
Yeah, I think we
wasn't really
have
thinking about
15 at the moment. I would
15
say,
females.
yeah, 15 females of size being
Yeah.
paired. I would say like 7 to 8 are. We've had visual locks. Again,
Okay.
my snakes aren't at my house, so unfortunately, I don't really get to have as much time as I would like to wait around
Sure.
and check on the tubs. But
Yeah.
after I see like one or two visual locks between a male and a female, I'm pretty much putting the trust in the male that he's getting the job done at that point. And I've always said, even though I'd like to confirm locks, checking on the snakes isn't going to make them lock anymore.
No.
If anything, we're bugging them, especially if it's a male in his first year, checking on him all the time. I mean, that he's just getting into this. So to me, it's kind of bugging them if you're checking all the time. I would
Yeah.
like to
Well,
be able to
especially
check
as
them
skittish
all.
as these things are.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like how many times you open a bin and they're just like, they kind of whip, and
Yeah.
that's what
Yep.
it takes, right? And
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say 7 to 8 we've had confirmed locks, and maybe 4 to 5 I would say are building quite nice at this point.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. Luckily, my bigger pied girls are all doing really well, so those are kind of the girls I was hoping for. And that I'm pretty sure my pastel calico just had her pre-lay shed, so I think I'm quite certain I missed her ovulation, unfortunately. But I'm still getting into it too, right? Like I'm still learning, and I'm not gonna pretend I know everything and I'm catching everything. People miss stuff all the
No,
time.
trust me, I know, man.
Yeah.
The clutch that I have, again, I thought that pastel leopard girl, I thought I was gonna get a clutch from her. Like that one, I was like, oh, those eggs
They're
those
there,
eggs are
man.
coming.
Yeah.
They're here. They're basically here already. Like
Seriously.
I felt like I knew, not because I'm like, oh, I know what I'm talking about, but just like
No.
visually to me, she looked like she was gonna give me eggs because she was
Yeah.
big and this, that, and the other. Probably what was happening was she might have had an ovulation and then I stopped pairing her. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So she just didn't go. And I think that's what actually happened. She looked
Yep.
big because, she was building, but then there was no male after that. So anyways, but then the clutch that I got was from my trick female who I was convinced had done that. I was like, oh, she's not going to go until the day I opened the tub and there's freaking eggs in there. So it's just like,
seriously, man.
and so now that, so I've got a girl that, like I said, she should go. She's a fire yellow belly, spot nose, het ultramel.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
That is
I got her also from Kabilka. And she was bred to my male Mojave ultramel.
Oh man, dude.
Yeah, so Mojave, fire, yellow belly, spot nose, ultramels, like,
dude,
who knows?
that's gonna be incredible, man. Holy crap.
But that girl, man, I've been like watching her like a hawk. Like I told Chris Ward the other day, he's like, because I was asking him kind of his thoughts, and Marshall's probably laughing at me if he's still here because I've been bugging them too. I was like, I found her twice now. I have found her twice now in the past 2 months completely inverted, belly
Yep.
up, like uncomfortable, like all hell. But this is like 6 weeks apart. I'm like, what is happening? Like, I'm
Yeah,
so
no,
confused. Because I'm like, when she did it the first time, I was like, okay, like, is that an ovulation? Like, what am I looking? I don't even know. I have no idea.
I
I
know,
just
man.
know that's a sign. Like, that
Yeah,
means
yeah.
something, right?
Same here, man. Same
And
here.
and then when I found her the second time, she's the first snake I was able to palpate.
Yeah.
I was able to actually take a paper towel, wrap it around her, and have her cruise through my hands, and finally was able to actually feel a lump. And
That's
I was
amazing.
like, that was another one of those just like holy shit moments.
Yep.
But yeah, man, just like I'm watching, but still don't actually know what the hell I'm seeing. Like, I
Dude,
have no
seriously,
idea.
I'm in the same boat. Like I really wish I knew. And like that's the problem is I try to read as much as I can and like
Hmm.
I usually I check out the Marcus Jane breeding pictorial that he
Yeah,
has
yeah,
quite a
his is
bit.
super thorough. Yeah, yeah,
Very
it's great.
nice. But then when it comes to in person, I'm like, fuck, man, I don't know what I'm like.
Yeah,
Is this? Did I miss the ovulation? Like she's inverted now. She's not inverted. She's
yeah,
on heat. Oh, she's
right.
been on heat for so long. Oh, she's
Yeah.
back to the
Dude,
front.
I literally have day-to-day notes in a notebook of that girl because like I said, of all the snakes, like I do not want her to reabsorb. Like if
Yeah,
she
no kidding.
reabsorbs, I'm gonna like I will vomit. Like yeah, Kayla said it in the comments. Like my anxiety's going through the roof. My
Yeah,
anxiety's already through the roof over
yeah.
that girl. Like my brain is melting. I have hit up Marshall and Shane so much asking questions about that girl, and then Chris Ward, same thing.
Yeah.
He was like, I mean, are you still pairing? I was like, dude, I'm still pairing her. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah.
stop pairing her with that
No.
male until pretty much until she doesn't want anything to do with him or until I have eggs in the incubator.
Yeah.
And
Seriously, man.
he's like, well, like, how many locks? I was like, dude, I have visually confirmed like at least 7 locks, maybe
Yeah.
10. Like, I don't know. I just keep I was like, I
Just
throw them
keep.
in there every 3 to 4 weeks,
Yep.
and they keep locking, and so I just keep putting them in there.
Just keep doing. Yeah, that's you know that the
You know.
same girl I bought all my proven breeders from. We had a chat, and I was talking to her on the same lines of everything we're chatting about right now, and she's like, dude, just keep feeding and pairing. She's like, until
Yeah.
you see eggs or you're noticing that every time you've put them in there, they're on the separate ends.
Yeah.
But she's like, even then, it's not, as long as they're not, if they're eating and pairing, just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Because that's what's driving me nuts. This girl's
You know.
still eating. She's still
Yeah,
eating, and
exactly.
she's massive. I'll get her
But-
out really quick because
Yeah,
she's
for
dude,
sure.
she's huge, and it's amazing to me. And I'm gonna be as gentle with her as possible because she is like she's got to be freaking gravid. If she's not gravid, I don't know. I don't know what snake is.
Yeah.
But dude, this
Oh,
girl
yeah,
at the
she's
start of the
thick,
season.
dude.
At the start of the season, this girl was she was like 1450. Like I wasn't even sure if I was gonna pair her.
Yeah.
And dude, she's got to weigh like freaking 5 pounds right now. I mean, she's gigantic.
She's thick, man.
Yeah. And look at the base of her tail.
Oh yeah, dude. I bet. When has she had like a shed anytime recently?
No, that's the other part. She hadn't shed for like 3 months.
What?
I'm telling you, this girl has me super, super, super confused because at one point, like first of all, she's never stopped eating. And
Yeah.
in fact, she just ate again this week. She has never missed a meal, like not one. I mean, she is like, if I'm thawing rats in the room, she is at the front of the tub, like, hey, I need one of those.
Yeah.
And hasn't shed in I don't know how long. I mean, I'd have to even check my records to tell you. It's been a while. It's been at least since November. And on top of that, there was one point around the time that she had inverted herself. I put the male in, and she lost her shit. Did not fucking want him in that tub. And so I'm like, okay, perfect. Like she's done. She's gonna go. Like she doesn't want anything to do with the male. Put him back in there like 3 weeks later because I was just noticing like she was just still like, again, she was still eating, and so I started questioning it. It might have even been like 5 weeks. because I thought she was done.
Yeah.
But I threw him back in there because I was like, man, like she still hasn't shed or like done anything else. Locked right up with him immediately. She was tail wagging, doing the whole thing, and then locked within, I'm not kidding, within like 30 minutes.
Oh my God, dude.
I would like everybody that I tell this stuff to, they're like, dude, I couldn't tell you. They're like, I've never heard of anything like that. And especially for her still pounding food, like it just doesn't, she doesn't make sense. I'm telling you, she's just trying to mess with me, man.
Yeah, no kidding, man. She's thick.
So,
like,
I don't know.
Obviously, she's clearly building if she's like getting that big and like that harsh.
And she's got follicles. I mean, like I said, like and Marshall told me the same thing when he saw how big she was. He's like, dude, he's like, we were on a live.
Yeah.
He's like, grab a paper towel, see if you can palpate that girl right now. He's like,
Yes.
I'll walk you through it. And that was the first time I was like, oh, holy shit, that's what follicles feel like.
Yeah,
like,
I was there on that live.
like it was just the way that people describe it. But
That,
again,
like,
to describe it to somebody and then to feel it, it's like, oh, like, you know, it just clicks all of a sudden. But
yeah, oh yeah, totally. And that's the thing. Like I can feel, like, when I palpate, I can feel the follicles. I'm just like, I'm not good at knowing like the stage yet. That's what I always.
That's what I was trying to tell him. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
at.
because he's like, do they feel like they're like chicken egg sized? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I just felt some lumps in there. I don't know anything. Like,
that's how I feel too, man. I'm like, I don't know, man. I feel like they go, in my opinion, I don't know if it's just like, I just feel like they go by so quickly that I can't grasp. Yeah. I can't grasp.
Yeah, because I probably palpated her like 3 times, and then like I said, same thing. I'm like, I don't want to palpate her to the point of like stressing her the fuck out, you know, to where then I'm like, so it's that fine line, man. I'm like, you know, eventually I'll reach the point where it's worth it to spend the money on an ultrasound, but I'm pretty far away from that at this point.
Yeah. No, it's
I could see you like within the next year probably, you know, wanting to get into one. I mean, with the number of snakes you have, and you know, like maybe by your second season, I think it probably would be worth the expense.
Yeah, I'm looking into it as we speak. Actually, just because I have enough females where it would be nice, and like I'm taking a lot of people's advice and not trying to go too male heavy or anything. Even though I don't think I am really, but you know, it will be nice for the future just to kind of, you know, hold back on them, because I mean, we're putting the males in with the females and they're locking, but if they don't have anything going on, it's kind of a waste of time.
Sure. And you said you're in the 30s as far as numbers?
Yeah.
And you've got 4 males?
Four breeding males. 4 breeding males. Yeah. So
no, that makes sense. I think that's perfect. That makes perfect sense, man. For that number of females. Again, obviously I know not all those are up to size. But again, going back to it, other, you know, big breeders' recommendations to always have a backup male, like, makes sense to me.
Exactly, man. And that's the thing. It's like you know, actually, I think I have 5 breeder males, but still, like, the point is, like, I would rather just be able to put them with a female that I know is like, you know, getting close or ready to go. And I don't think I'm to that point where I would wait, because some of the bigger breeders, when they wait until like the follicles are at that nice size, I think I'd probably still pair a little bit earlier, just because I'm anxious like that. I'm a nervous person. And I'm always like,
we're on the same page there. Trust me. Trust me. Yeah. And I mean, there's breeders too that they'll say like, Kabilka says it doesn't. There are some breeders that say like, you know, that the act of pairing will cause the breeder, the female, to start building.
Right.
Kabilka says he's never seen it that way. He's like, they either build or they don't. Like, you know, he's like, I've never been able to measure that, you know, pairing is what actually kicked it off. He's like, they basically just start building, and then I know.
Exactly.
So who knows, you know? Everybody's got kind of their own theories, and obviously everybody's on both sides of that argument, I think, have had some success. So I don't think there's anything right, wrong, or otherwise to be said about it.
Yeah, I think either way works, whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you get to that top of the mountain. There's so many different paths we can all take, and you know, it's just nice to try your own thing and see how it works for you, and, you know, whatever you're comfortable with. And
hell yeah. If that means you're comfortable with rolling the dice on 250 babies with no belly teeth like Billy, then, you know, hey, your level of risk is a lot different from my comfort zone. But you know,
dude.
He was a professional poker player, so I guess it kind of makes sense. But
all in, baby. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like somebody was asking him in that same stream the other day, like, hey, you know, like I'm kind of like I want to spend some money on some snakes, but like I don't really want to like go way outside of my budget and like, you know, like use credit cards, this, that, and the other. And he's like, you know, you got to kind of make that call for yourself, but you know, I'm all in. I'm going all in.
Exactly.
And then he's like, no, he's like, in fact, you don't need to think about it. You just need to go all in. And I'm like, Billy, that's terrible advice.
Yeah, don't tell people that, man. People have addictive personalities. No, like they'll like, okay, we're taking out a second mortgage. Billy told me to do it, so I'm doing
it. Right. I'm like, I can get another credit card. I know I can. Like I can definitely afford a visual ultra clown right now. Sure, absolutely. $7,000, no big deal. Like
no worries, man. We got this.
Man. Yeah.
So,
Thankfully, I didn't listen to that advice myself, but yeah.
yeah.
Well, hell, Sal, we'll try to kind of wrap this up, man. So kind of tell
Yeah.
everybody what do you have going on social media? I know you do lives where? Instagram. I know you've got a YouTube channel as well. Like what do you have
Yeah.
going on for yourself?
So I just started off a new kind of live on my YouTube. It's called Through the Snake Vine, and my YouTube is
Oh
House
yeah.
of Gaia Pythons. And
Yep.
then I mostly just do Instagram, House of Gaia Pythons on Instagram. I try to do daily content, but at the same time, it gets kind of hard because I don't really have a lot of babies coming out and stuff. So, but I try to post some new pictures at least once a day or once every couple of days. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to starting lives on YouTube. So I'm trying to get better at YouTube, but like I said, I'm a pretty introverted person, so it takes a lot for me to actually make videos and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting better. I'm becoming a little bit more open.
You're good, man. I mean, you're doing good on camera right now, and I mean, obviously, I know it's easy because it's like at least with this platform, it's literally just you and I kind of in a room, and there's like
Yes.
comments kind of off to the side, but it gets
That's
better,
exactly
man.
it. And it's
Yeah,
nice
it
because
does.
like I'm comfortable talking about reptiles and snakes. So
Mhm.
I really do enjoy it. Like if anyone ever wants to just chat about reptiles, man, just definitely DM me. I will chat your ear off for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably the best platforms to get a hold of me anyways.
Awesome. And obviously, you guys probably already know because I think you can already see the description on YouTube. His stuff is down there, so give him a follow on both of those platforms. I think you're not too far off from 2,000 followers on IG, so that's killer.
Yeah.
YouTube channel, I don't remember where you were at on that one. I didn't
I
look
think I have
before we
like
started to get the numbers.
100 subs right now, but I just started. I think I have like 5 or 6 videos right now. So
Yeah, it happens quick, man. It happens quick. You know.
Yeah.
I just hit 300. I
Yeah,
think
that's right.
like yesterday or something like that, which is
Thank
it's just
you.
huge. Thank you again to everybody that's here and to anybody that's watching us after the fact. I appreciate y'all. But hell yeah, Sal, thank you so much for your time, man. Seriously,
Thank
this has
you.
been a blast. I feel like we could probably go for another 2 hours or something
Oh,
like that. But
easily,
I know
man. Can't
I know
believe
you and I both probably got other things going on in the morning that we need to get some sleep for. So thanks again, brother. Thank you again to
That's
everybody
right.
in the comments. Seriously, you guys make this stuff worthwhile, worth doing, and you guys keep me motivated. I know Sal feels the same way. So thanks, guys, and everybody have a great night. We'll see y'all next week.
See you guys.